Things might get weird.
Yeah.
Welcome to our life.
We're so official. Welcome back to another episode of the Hewlett House podcast. We have good friends here today. We're excited to chat with.
So excited.
I don't know how excited they are yet, but we'll have fun.
We'll be good.
Everybody looks good.
Yeah.
Happy Memorial Day to everybody.
Yeah.
Got the day off.
Yes.
Do you say your daughter's starting her job today?
First job. Yeah.
First day.
Awesome.
First official
She's
job.
excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, we're man, this will be a fun episode. We'll try to stay on track here, I guess, and really it's a podcast, it's open forum, so however we want to go with this. But I wanted to have Brandon and Amanda on. We went to high school together and talk about Brandon and Amanda Gregory, sorry. Amanda's maiden name is Thompson, right?
Yes.
I'm related to some Thompsons, by the way.
Oh,
I wonder if like in some world we're related. Check our genealogy later. Yeah. And then my dad knew your parents, by the way. He talks really highly of your mom. He like, and your grandparents, right? Was your grandpa like a builder or something?
So my mom's dad, yeah, it was Lamoureux.
Lamoureux.
Yeah.
Yeah, he talks
American
really
Fork, yep.
cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I totally forgot to mention that to you.
Oh, I love that.
He really liked your parents and your grandparents, and anyway.
Awesome. Good to know.
Yeah. And Matt tells you what he thinks, so
Yeah.
it's good, right, Dad?
Yeah. It's not hard to like my mom, so I understand that.
Cool.
That's awesome.
But I wanted to have these guys on because Brandon early on was someone that we were showing him homes like, I don't know, how long has it been? A few years ago now.
Dude, we were with you for so many years.
That was awesome, yeah.
Forever.
We took our first realtor at least for a ride for about a year at least.
Yeah.
Maybe longer.
Yeah.
So we got it.
I think.
I don't know, because we were looking for the longest time,
Yeah.
like 6 or so years, but I think the last 2 years of it looking was you. So
Really?
Yeah.
And it was off and on. It wasn't like every weekend we were
No.
out, but
Yeah.
You'd see something cool, and then you'd be like, hey, let's go look at it.
yeah.
yeah. And then I just knew Amanda had she knew what she wanted and we weren't
Yeah.
finding it. So I said, let's go talk to a builder. And then you guys were able to kind of customize it.
Yeah.
And they live in a beautiful house.
We love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
Good.
You like the area and everything?
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Totally.
Yeah, it's a good spot. We
It
just
is.
did a spec home just on the Mapleton side of you guys.
Okay.
Like kitty corner from that Maverick over there.
Mhm.
We finally just sold it. It took a while, but
Oh, that's awesome.
It's a weird market.
yeah, when you hit that $1 million
Sure.
range, things are slower. So
Mm-hmm.
with rates at 7%,
Yeah. It's insane.
you got into the right
not
time,
worth it.
man. At
Yeah,
least you
we
didn't hold
literally
on.
did. It was like 2 weeks later, and it would have been a
Yeah.
whole different story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just finished a build with some friends with Arrive up in where your parents are.
Okay.
When we started the process, their build took almost like 18 months to do,
Wow.
and they started at like a 3%, and by the time they closed, they were like mid sixes. I think they
That's
were
crazy.
like debating
That's
on
insane.
do we ditch our deposit? Like, what do we do? And they made it work. I was kind of surprised, but
Wow.
It's
Anyway.
hard because that totally changes your payment each month.
a
like,
lot.
A lot. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Not
yes, we can
little.
afford this. This is great.
Yeah.
Talking about
No.
hundreds.
Yeah,
if you're
yeah,
looking
yeah.
at the- in the
Yeah.
cheaper range.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole car payment, like a nice car payment by the time you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Woof.
yeah. But anyway, I don't want to tell too much of your story, so I'll let you guys kind of tell. We all went to high school. I think it's funny, and I don't know how common this is, but I swear, like, we went to Lone Peak High School, and I'm shocked at how many other couples from Lone Peak dated and like married each other.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know. I mean, maybe we just are a different year or something like that, but I don't think there's a lot that can say that.
Yeah.
Like other
Yeah.
schools and stuff. I don't know.
I think there
Yeah.
was a Facebook group at one point. I don't know where it's at now, but there was a whole bunch of us.
Everybody that
Oh,
married
really?
each other,
Of
yeah.
married.
Oh, that's
Married
funny.
couples, yeah.
Oh, funny.
Was it like 20,
We never
30
got
couples, you
invited.
think?
Oh, it's
I
up
don't
there
know,
for
yeah.
sure. But we'll see at the graduation. or
Yeah,
not
the
graduation,
reunion, right?
reunion.
Oh,
You guys
yeah.
going?
We're in the graduation season right now.
Are you gonna go? No.
I usually don't go, no.
Oh, you gotta go.
This is 20, man.
It's a
I
big
know,
20
this is a
years.
big one.
Yeah.
When I heard people say they were been graduated for 20 years, I was like, those are old people.
Right.
We're old now, I guess.
Yeah.
We have
Turns out.
teenagers.
Yeah.
So dumb.
I know. It's crazy.
But early on, I was elders quorum president. We've talked a little bit about this, so I'll be quick. But I was elders quorum president for a while. I had like a counselor that kind of dipped out on me, didn't want to be in a part of the church anymore. I had really close friends that I knew were strong in the church. Mormonism is what we're talking about, Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, and and I just had people kind of changing their faith, and so I was talking to Brandon, and he had an adjustment in his faith, and I started asking him questions, and he was really cool about it. He was really respectful and everything, and I thought you just said, hey, let's go to lunch and we'll go chat, or maybe I said that. I said, let's go meet up for lunch sometime. We met up in Draper, I think, and had some lunch, and you were even cool just to say, hey, you sure you want to talk about this? Like, there's some stuff we'll go over. And I'm like, bring it on, dude. Just hit me with it. And so we started talking, and some of the best advice you gave me was chat with Jess, like talk to your wife about what you're reading, because you had kind of started studying, and I don't want to tell or assume too much, but it kind of seemed like you had kind of started studying and things started to change, and you're like, oh, I need to talk to my wife. And you kind of just shared your experience with me. And so that afternoon on my way home, I remember calling Jess and telling her, hey, I'm going to start studying some stuff. Don't want to be too naive to what I'm going to be reading, but I think always in the back of your mind, though, you think it's going to be better or easier or than it really is, At least for me. Like,
For sure.
I'm really good at making things hard. So, like, even work and stuff, you're just like, it's not going to be that bad. And then you get going, and it's always harder than you think it's going to be sometimes. But anyway, so I just wanted to kind of briefly, I guess, start with how you guys met. Tell us kind of your story. Tell us how many kids you have, if you're okay with that, and
Yeah.
ages. And
Go ahead, hon.
Okay. Well, we went to high school, like we talked about, and we started, I guess, officially dating. I don't know. We were kind of on and off, but it was our junior year.
Back in 2001.
was it
Yeah.
your junior year?
Yeah.
Okay, I wondered if it was junior or senior year.
And then he kept breaking my heart. No, I'm just kidding.
Freaking Brandon.
Rude. No, it was just high school,
I mean,
whatever.
technically, we were official in 2002 during the Olympic time. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we just went to some dances and dated around, and then graduated, and he went on his mission.
Where'd you go?
Houston, the Texas Houston East mission.
Cool.
It was the mission, is what
Yeah.
we called it.
Really?
THB, Texas Houston.
How many missions were there in Texas when you were there?
Just in Houston alone, there were 3. So
Really?
you had the regular Texas, you had Texas South, or Texas Houston South, and then you had the East. East was the original area, and then they split them all up. But then, even when I was there, they split up the mission, and a lot of it went back to the normal, like, Texas Houston mission. So yeah,
Crazy. Because Houston, that's the biggest city.
it's the biggest metropolitan area.
Okay.
It's what they consider a megalopolis. If you have a high tax dollar area, they'll consume you and become a part of Houston.
Wow.
Or if you're not producing enough taxes, then they'll drop you and you become your own little area.
Gotcha. Do they have like some of the biggest exporting area too? But a lot of people don't know that because it comes in through a big river there or something.
Yeah, so
It's random. Sorry.
No,
No.
it is a little random. But there's a harbor there. It's the highest point in the Houston area. It's the 610 bridge, and that's where, like, Volkswagen, they bring all of their vehicles through. So you'll just go across that bridge, and you'll look over to the side and see all of their vehicles coming in. It's kind of
Crazy.
cool.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
I didn't know that till I worked in a wholesale doing sales, and
Mhm.
they mentioned it was one of the biggest ports in the country or
Well,
something.
there's also a couple battleships there. So
Oh,
for
cool.
the military, like Battleship Texas is there, one of the old ones. You can take tours of it, but
Oh, right on.
And they
That's
have the
crazy.
best Shipley donuts.
Yeah.
So have you guys gone back?
Yeah,
Or
yeah. I
you
mean,
just have said that.
he actually, that's where he was born.
I was
is
born in Austin.
Austin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he kind of
Family's
went
from
back to
Houston.
stomping grounds because his grandfather, maybe you should
Yeah,
say.
so I'll go back. My
Sure.
grandfather was one of the original, I guess, people who got baptized in the Houston area for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, LDS Church, and his grandfather, so my great grandfather, was one of the main guys who set up the Baptist Church in Texas. So they were very, very staunch Southern Baptist. And,
Wow.
the story goes, and my grandfather told it almost every 6 months whenever we got together.
It was
Yeah.
their Christmas Eve, basically.
Yeah.
Cute.
They just kind of going back a little bit. There was the I guess, children that they had were a set of twins, and the set of twins passed away shortly after they were born. And their story goes that essentially, the Southern Baptist movement that was down there was telling them because they were not baptized, they are not going to heaven, they're not this, they're not that. So it was kind of earth shattering for my grandmother.
Yeah.
And my granddad at the time was very much a lawyer, just kind of getting things up and going. And then my grandma and my grandmom, for that matter, she was one that was just kind of searching for other things. And so the sister missionaries dropped by, and well, let me back up. The elders dropped by first, and I think there was someone down the street, just looking back, obviously now from what we all know, that kind of knew they were going through a trial or a struggle. And so they send someone over there, and the elders were turned away almost immediately. But then the sisters, when they came back a couple weeks later, my granddad was not there, and my grandmom was. They talked for a minute, and something sparked in her. And then basically the rest kind of becomes history, because they invited them back over. My granddad being a lawyer as well as a Southern Baptist, probably not the best mix.
Man.
Hard to convince, but
Yeah.
because my grandmom was big time invested into this, she convinced him to listen, and they did. And one thing led to another, and obviously they were baptized. And then they had 2 other children, and then it was my grandmom said that she got on her knees and prayed, and essentially got the I guess the confirmation that she was going to have another set of twins, and she did, which is how my dad and my uncle are now about.
Okay.
And then they had another 2 kids after that. So they had a total of 9 kids, 7 that are still alive, and obviously
Crazy.
the first 2 that have
Yeah.
passed away. But anyways, going back to that same story with my granddad. So because he converted over, and him being as analytical as you can be when it comes to finding proof and so on, because of being a lawyer, he was very instrumental in the area and spreading the church in that area. And so he had a big, I guess, group of people that kind of followed his lead.
Yeah.
And so when I went back as a missionary, I kind of fell into some of those families, like the Prince family, the Packer family.
Really?
There's lots of, and these are Packers that, from what I understand, were part of the Hewlett Packard
Oh,
family.
nice.
So the Packer.
Yeah. We're unfortunately not.
Unfortunately.
My grandma might tell you that we're like way distant relatives or something, but yeah.
Well, it's hard to know if even some of the stories I know are
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You know how the Mormon folklore goes.
Sure.
But getting back into that family, that group, there was the little Prays, the Princes, the Packards, and what's kind of scary about that area is that they're all like what you would think. They all marry each other.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
Anyways, but yeah, so they kind of know who my grandfather was at the time, and so going back to the stomping grounds was a lot of fun. Just
It's
getting to
not-
know everybody.
Is that where, do you know the author, that Gregory Prince guy? Did you ever listen to him much? He's not a part of that, is he?
No,
Is
I
he
don't
from
know
there?
if he is or not, to be honest. I know that
Okay.
name, but I met the Princes, and I don't remember Greg, but I could be wrong.
Okay. He's the one that co-authored that book on David O. McKay.
Mm.
And I only got through, I actually want to go finish it. It was really kind of a fascinating
I'll
book.
have to look it
but
up.
on
Yeah.
his life and
See if
everything.
it's him.
Pretty wild, and he's been on Mormon Stories a couple times or whatever too, but
Oh, that one.
He's
I know
believing.
which one you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
Not the same one. No.
okay, different.
But I think they have some relationship there because, anyways, the ones that I know are from Kingwood, Texas, which is
Okay.
still considered part of Houston.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I would-
Yeah, I would say Kingwood is just a small little BYU fraction.
Oh, really?
Anybody who graduated from BYU with a business degree that wanted to get into oil, that's where they ended up, is Kingwood. So,
Mm,
Gotcha.
there you go.
Right on.
anyways, that's the Houston story there. That's how I got to know.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
That's
Stomping
cool.
Grounds.
It was
I'm a
fun for him
Baptist.
because he would be talking to somebody and be like, "Oh, I know your grandfather," because
Yeah.
Mhm.
they help build
instrumental.
churches and whatnot too.
One of the big churches there, I can't remember what it's called right now, but it's in the Memorial area. And anyways, they had the only piped organ in the area. They were just trying to build something small, and he petitioned to make sure that they had the best of the best at the time, and he got the piped organ. So it's still
Yeah,
there,
that's
still
cool.
in function.
Oh, right on.
Cool.
Churches back then were different than they are now, because now they just have a cookie cutter, set it
Yeah,
up, and
yeah.
it's built. Whereas back then they had to almost crowdsource and
Oh, yeah.
get the funding for it, and then the members in the area would build portions of it, and get their talents and put everything into it. So
Yeah.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So you grew up in, or like just were born there in Texas.
I was born in
and then you-
Austin. We lived there for, it was about a year and a half, 2 years. Then we moved to Alpine.
Okay.
But the Alpine was only for a short period of time. It was only for like 9 months. And it was actually the Pitcher family. Do you know the Pitchers?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Pitcher family, Lauren Pitcher was
Yeah.
the one that I think was your age.
Yeah.
We lived with them. In fact, she was a baby at the same time I was a baby there. And
funny.
we had no idea. But my parents ended up moving to Salt Lake shortly after that. And
Okay.
then we moved to Sandy. Then we moved to Linden. Then we moved back to Alpine. And we had lived in like 2 or 3 different homes in Alpine. So my story's a little bit longer on that than Amanda's. But
I literally only lived in Pleasant Grove.
Yeah.
How old were you when you moved to Alpine for the last time? Like, went to junior high there, or were you grade school still?
we were in 4th grade.
Okay,
Yeah, 4th grade is when we moved there.
cool.
Cool.
Right on.
In fact, I knew
Yeah,
your
I was-
brother Brandon.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We
Yeah, I
kinda-
was gonna say, I feel like you'd been there a long time, but I couldn't pinpoint when it was that you guys had come back.
So we were on that River Meadow Road, and y'all were on the Village Way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you
I
born and raised in PG.
yeah. I mean, I was actually
you want to tell the story?
yeah.
about
You could tell
Yeah.
that because he thinks it's so funny. My whole entire life, I thought I was born in the American Fork Hospital.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
And then like I don't know, 5
It
years
was
ago.
always- yeah, it was a couple of years prior to your mom passing. But she's
Yeah.
like, you do know that the American Fork Hospital is not where it is today, right?
I had no
Oh,
idea.
yeah.
It's
Oh.
now a
It's a skilled nursing
Yeah.
facility.
Yeah.
So if you walk in, it smells like urine, the whole thing.
yeah. So that's where I was born.
Listen, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wait, does that mean
Does
you and
that
I
mean-
were born over there?
We've been telling
You
our
better
kids this
find
whole
out.
time.
Yeah, that's so
That's
funny.
what I always
We
say.
were born in this hospital.
I didn't
the same
realize-
as They,
Yeah.
they had
I
been.
guess I should ask. I always thought AF Hospital too,
Yep.
where it's at now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it moved down the
I,
street. So it's
yeah. It's kind of funny,
a
right?
skilled nursing facility.
I know right where it is.
Yeah.
Just down from Forbes Elementary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
heck. Because right around when we were born, then it had to be switched over. Like it was.
It was pretty close to that.
Yeah.
Right?
Was
I
it?
don't think it was much farther after that.
When were you born? What's your birthday?
85
Okay.
April.
April 85. Well, I was June 85. Crap, maybe I was born there. How about
There you
that?
go.
Gotta
What
ask
do
your
you
mom.
think? Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah, it was just
Just AF Hospital. We were like, tell our kids we were all born there. And like, maybe not.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah,
That's
well,
kinda funny.
Super
We're
funny.
gonna have to look that up.
I don't even know why it came about, but yeah, my mom thought I knew and I didn't. So
Oh my heck, that is way funny.
Yeah, so the joke is that she was born in a skilled nursing facility,
Yeah.
not a hospital.
it's okay.
It's a little scary looking now.
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah,
It was
right.
better back then. It wasn't
For
that
sure,
bad.
for sure.
How funny.
That's so funny.
But yeah, and then always. I mean, I moved from different houses, but I was always Pleasant Grove.
In that area.
Yeah, all my siblings went to Pleasant Grove High, but I was the traitor and went to Lone Peak.
And where do you fit? How many siblings do you have?
I'm the youngest.
Okay.
There's 4. I have 2 sisters, 2 brothers.
Total of 5, though.
Yeah, with me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Why did you choose to go Lone Peak? You just had friends around there, or was it because of
Well,
money?
I don't know. Maybe a little bit. But no, it was just we were on the border. I had a choice. I could either go to American Fork, Lone Peak, or Pleasant Grove.
Her home was right over there by the blue silos,
Yeah.
by the temple.
Oh yeah.
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 So they they had a
Yeah.
choice of going to one of 3
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
So
And my mom really liked Lone Peak, and I was like, I don't care. So
her
Yeah.
mom was very much into Image.
Really?
You know
Yeah.
she was.
It was newer. It was nicer for sure.
Yeah.
I had gone to AF
It was
junior
world
high.
class, man.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it doesn't say that anymore. They took that
took
down.
it
No,
They took it down.
they took that down.
Then
Oh,
took
they
it down.
did?
Probably
Yeah.
good.
Probably when they finished AF and Lehigh and made them look nicer.
Yeah.
Right.
Didn't someone in our grade tear down the C and the L and it said World
I
Ass
want to say
High
that was
School?
Brandon.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Brandon
did.
Lindra.
Was it really?
I want to say so. Maybe I'm wrong.
funny.
but
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I remember.
Maybe
that.
that's why.
Right.
could be.
Maybe.
But he,
Like, oh yeah, that.
it was
doesn't
either
sound
them
right.
or I know they had burned an LP in the middle of American Forks football field. So
Oh, really? Oh, that was me
Javon.
and Brandon.
Oh, it was you and Brandon.
Me and
You
Brandon got
tried
caught.
to.
Yeah.
Oh, you
That's
did
what it
that?
was.
We went the night
Did you
before.
actually do it though, or
We had
did
weed
you try
killer,
to?
and we tried. And as soon as we got to the field, there was a cop like
Doesn't
100 yards away.
surprise you, man.
Yeah, it
I
was
didn't realize that was
so
you.
dumb. Yeah,
For some reason, I didn't put you there. I thought it was Javon, and I guess it wasn't.
that was Brandon, Andre, and I.
I know Brandon. I remember Brandon doing it.
He apparently got permission from his parents, and I didn't. I just kind of slipped out the back door, and we went.
Do you
got
think
in
you would have gotten permission from your parents?
Nope.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
How
our
does
kids
a
are gonna do
parent
this.
give permission to go do something?
Yeah,
like
right?
that?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I remember him saying something that he was, but we were still hiding. So for some reason I had that thought in my head, like your parents told you could come out, and maybe he told them we were going to go do something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could have
That's
been
what I
the
used
case.
to do. I get it.
Yeah.
I get
A
it.
roundabout saying what you're doing, but not the details.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, it was whenever I'd go with Todd or Kevin. I was always like, "Yep, we're gonna go hang out and do something stupid." You know?
Yeah. Yeah,
It was
those guys.
stupid stuff.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah.
So funny. And then how many siblings do you have?
There's a total of 5 of us. I'm the oldest. So
Okay.
oldest, and then she's the youngest. Obviously, different dynamics
funny,
between
yeah.
the two.
It's so
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. Is that like helpful or not?
I think
Or
it helps us fit
Both. Yeah.
together.
It's interesting because, like, I mean, growing up, I was always the last of everything, and so to see
Yeah.
him and to start with, like, I was the first in-law, and that was hard because
Yeah.
their parents were like learning.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we got to let our son go, and this
Yeah.
is who they like. And anyways, so it was hard, I'm sure, and it's just funny to see the difference that their parents are now because they've gone through 5 kids, and
Right.
anyways, so it's fun to see the different dynamics of starting and finishing
Yeah.
a family. So
I imagine you fit in pretty good there.
Yeah.
You get
I don't
along
know. I don't know if they like me. No, I'm just kidding.
pretty well. Everybody likes Amanda.
Yeah.
Sometimes probably more than me, actually.
No,
Which we'll get into that part of the story. I think.
Yeah.
whatever.
Yes. These are my
And your kids
favorite.
are really similar ages. We didn't talk about that yet, right?
Yeah. So you guys.
To our kids. We really have
Well,
very
like,
similar.
hold on. So
Go ahead.
you went on your mission,
Oh yeah.
came back.
You
Then...
dated though before you left. You were in high
Yeah,
school,
so
and
we
you
were high
wrote.
school. We were high school sweethearts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
In fact, cutest couple in
Yeah.
the yearbook. So
Does
we
it
looked
say?
that
That's
up.
awesome.
Yeah.
Really?
You gotta
Yeah.
get the yearbook out and look at it.
It was us and
my
one
heck.
other couple, but
Yeah.
we're the only ones still together.
Yeah.
There you
So that
go.
worked out.
That's all that
So
matters.
who actually won?
Yeah.
But yeah, we dated. It was off and on for about 2 years.
Yeah.
Mostly
Before
on.
he went on his mission, though, he told me he's like, go out on date, go get married, all this stuff. Like he was totally like writing me off, right?
Had to
And I
do
was
that.
like, no, I'm not going to do that. So, and then when he went into the MTC, he actually wrote me another letter like, if you want to wait for me, you can. Anyway, so I went the whole 2 years without dating anyone, and I just went to school. Wrote him every week.
Way more loyal of a girlfriend.
Totally. You win.
Everybody was like,
You win.
you're not going to make it. There's no way that you can last that long. I'm like, oh, we will, because, I was head over heels. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
Of course.
So I went to school, and he
That's awesome.
served, and
Yeah.
we were in contact the whole time with letters and stuff. And
Yep.
yeah. And then he came home, and it was what? How many days after you asked me?
9 days.
9 days after.
To get married.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got home on December 15th, and it was Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I
Big
was so
family get
blown
together,
away.
which she should have seen the signs anyway.
I
'cause
should have.
her family and my family don't typically come together, and they
Yeah,
did
yeah.
for that one day, and
Oh, right on.
yeah.
I was oblivious.
That is super
That's
fast.
awesome,
but
though.
you knew. How did
Yeah.
you get a ring? What'd you
So I
do?
had one already before I got home.
Oh,
we,
okay.
we were checking some things out. Sierra West actually helped
Yeah.
us. Tim Bramscombe,
Yeah. that's
your
where we-
old neighbor.
Yep.
Yeah.
You found the diamond out in Texas, though. Right?
Well, kind
Or
of, sort of.
something. Oh, maybe I don't know this real story. Here we go.
No, it was a little over 100 years old. It was handed
Oh, wow.
down, that kind of stuff. We wanted a little bit of a background to it. And so it was an old lady who was just trying to get off on some extra cash she needed. And yeah,
That's cool.
obviously we picked it up. And I mean, granted, this could be coming from Tim, so who knows if it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know Tim that well, so.
He was a salesman for sure, huh?
Yeah.
So
He's pretty awesome.
Good story.
but-
We'll
He's a
keep
good
it, though.
guy.
But
Yeah,
he
he's a good guy.
yeah.
yeah, so then we got married in May after that. So it was about 6 months later. We were married. Of course, she already had the venue, and she had the date and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's
already set
because,
up.
so my mom, she was a florist, so she
Oh yeah.
was very involved with weddings, and so it wasn't hard to do.
Yeah.
I think I've seen that from your
Yeah,
Instagram
that's
posts.
cool.
A lot of your flowers and everything are really pretty.
Yeah, I just took a little portion of her business. She was like all day, every day, from morning to night. She was doing flowers, and so I just took a
Wow.
portion of hers after she
just
passed
the
away.
funeral side.
Crazy.
Yeah, so I'm not as
Wow.
busy as her, but it's fun.
So you do that now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Way cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Crazy. And then so got married. When
Yeah.
did you get? So December we got engaged. Then
May
married in May.
So let me back up here. When we got
Go.
married,
Yes.
it was very, I don't know, important for me I guess at the time to kind of do the, I don't know, how do you want to explain that, but more along the lines of like the the elite LDS Mormon type vision, if you want to call it that. So we got
Okay.
married at the Salt Lake Temple.
Nice.
Perfect.
We ended up going to
Good choice, by the way. Great temple.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
I love
beautiful.
Beautiful temple, a lot of history. That was one
Yeah.
of the main things there. And then we had our luncheon at where, hon?
At the Joseph Memorial Building.
There it is.
So yeah, we had a lot of. It was just very focused on. Really, I mean, it can sound bad, but the LDS Church. That was what we were focused on. But I was very much into that. I was very much into the doctrine of it. I wanted to have everything mean something, and so
Yeah.
going through the Salt Lake Temple, knowing the history behind it, and then a Joseph Smith Memorial Building. I know it was Hotel Utah, but just having Joseph Smith's name with it.
Right, right.
We did a few things over at the Limehouse as well. I mean, we had some food brought in, but anyways, it was all kind of centered around that, and that was symbolic for us.
Cool.
Yeah.
Kind of
Mhm.
our marriage was starting, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
it's good.
that's cool.
And then we had our first, it was, well, February of 2008 was
Mhm.
our first, and then the three followed.
yeah. So it was right around. I don't know if we want to get into the faith side of it, transition of it,
Yeah.
but
Sure.
it was right
Get at it.
around maybe a year or so before Bentley was born. And
I
he
was pregnant when you,
It was right
told
around
me.
that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was 2011. Yeah, 2011.
So you got married in 07.
Eight-
06, I'm sorry.
I mean
06.
six. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then baby in 08. Sorry.
Mhm.
That's what it was.
Yeah. So we've been married and together for a while. We've been
Yeah.
together for 21 years, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Jeez, yeah.
so yeah, I mean, my I guess we're kind of jumping into this now, but my history is that I was very much into the deep doctrine stuff. I was very much into well, full-fledged, or I don't want to be like a half-asser. That was
Yeah.
not
Sure.
who I was. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you could probably attest to that, Hayden, when we were hanging out back in high school, because I remember having gospel discussions with some of the friends, and that was just the way we were. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but that was to keep me on track because I was doing stuff I shouldn't have been doing back in those days. I mean, between me, Drew, Kevin, Todd, you,
All of us being a pain in the ass.
oh,
Yeah.
we were horrible.
See, it was funny when we were in high school because, you know, going to seminary, that was a lot of times I would be sloughing seminary a lot of times, and he would always make me feel
I never would.
so terrible. Like, how would you dare do that? Like, why are you doing that? You need to be here. And so I always felt so terrible.
One of my memories of you actually is because we were a little rowdy, and then you kind of came around. And we're like prepping for mission and stuff. And I remember hanging out with you, and we would pass by the temple, and you would like turn the music off. And I'm like, "What the
Yeah.
hell are you doing, dude? This is like a good song." It's like, and you're like, "Well, the music," and I'm like, "Okay, well, cool, okay, whatever," you know. And like,
Yeah, it wasn't appropriate to have Eminem,
yeah.
going on past the temple.
But we could listen once we got past the temple. It was okay. Yeah. It's just funny the funny things like that you do, right?
Weird stuff like that.
yeah.
So, yeah.
And
And now he turns it way up so you can hear it.
yeah, there you go. There you go by.
It's all out of principle.
Yeah.
But no, so I was very much into it. I was not going to be this person that was on the sideline and just jumping in from time to time. I was in the game and I was playing full fledged. So that was kind of me. And then when we obviously you were pregnant with Bentley. It was kind of a culmination of everything up to this point. So obviously I had my shelves that were built over the years, and if you want to call it decades, my first transition, I don't know what you call it, seed, if you want to call it that, would have been back in seminary. I had learned that Joseph Smith had more than one wife. That
Yeah.
was a big deal.
Yeah.
Because I had read No, it wasn't that one. It wasn't. I'm trying to think of which one. I'm thinking No Man Knows My history, but that's
History,
not
yeah.
the one. It's
Yeah.
it was the autobiography or biography done by Lucy Mack Smith. I can't remember what it was called, but
Yeah.
I read
like
that.
I think I might have that book actually. Yeah.
well, I read it, and the part that stood out to me the most is that when Emma came home to the Nauvoo house that they were living in, she looked at the top of the stairs and saw Joseph passionately kissing, as it says, his daughter. I mean, it wasn't a daughter; it was an adopted daughter, Fanny Alger.
Yeah.
Alger. How do you
His
say
mom
that?
says that.
Yeah, she
Okay.
talks about how Emma came home and saw that and was just totally distraught by it.
Huh.
Obviously, there's more to that story, but me hearing that there was one other, obviously I didn't know there were 34 or whatever, however many others there were
Yeah.
at the time. But when I had heard that, it was always Emma and Joseph, and that was it. You always knew
Yeah.
Brigham Young was a horny little bastard. But you never heard about Joseph, so you kind of took it with a grain of salt. And then when you heard that Joseph Smith had more than one, it was very earth-shattering to me. So I want to say I was 14 or 15 at the time, and that was when I actually met Kevin and Todd, and they kind of helped me just and kind of get through some of that mental stuff there. But they weren't really into church at all, and that wasn't something I wanted. I just wanted to kind of work through some things. And
Yeah.
about the same time my mom's parents had passed away, so yeah, a little bit earth shaking at the time for me, for a little 14, 15-year-old kid, but I was able to work through it, and then kind of broke away again. But
Yeah.
it was kind of a love-hate relationship. And then I became, as back in our day, it was a player.
Yeah.
The saying that when obviously don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yeah. Mhm.
Dating all the chicks.
And I bring this up because this is part of our relationship with Amanda and I. And it was around the time, so I was dating one of her friends. You remember Katie McMillan?
Yeah.
So I was dating her at the time. We had gone on a couple of dates.
Was she a
now.
year younger than us?
She was
She
our
was our
age.
same age,
Yeah,
yeah.
she had just barely moved in, brand new
Okay.
to the area.
I know. I remember the name. I can't put a face. Sorry, but yeah.
Yeah, so she and we kissed, but it didn't really work out, and it is what it is. But what is nice about that is she helped me set up a date with Amanda, because they were good friends. They lived in the same ward. They lived
Oh,
in the
no
same
way.
area.
Mhm.
And when
Oh,
one
I
thing
do
led to
remember
another.
her.
Yeah, one thing led to another, and
Okay.
obviously we became boyfriend girlfriend. Amanda and I did, and
Yeah, our first date was Sweethearts is where we
Mm.
started. So.
Oh, how funny.
And
Yeah.
then that's what led to us getting married later. And I bring that up because obviously our relationship was kind of established on getting to know each other, and we weren't getting together because of the church or any of that kind of stuff. It was because of us. It was
Yeah.
who we are and who we wanted to be around, and those things. And later on, obviously, we tried to institute some of the church stuff into it, but I wasn't big into the church when I met her.
Okay, so you hadn't.
He was
kinda
considered
fully-
like a bad boy in my book.
Was he? Yeah. How did you feel about that? Did you know that about?
Well,
him,
I
or did you
just,
feel-
well,
you-
first of all, I didn't,
early on?
I'm like, he knows who I am. Like, I don't know. I just, he was above me. I wasn't known very much in high school. And anyways, so I was just
known because of my
surprised.
cousins.
Yeah. I don't know. You were known. for
Yeah.
that, but- so I was surprised that he'd even like look my direction. And so, yeah, I think it was more of the fact like I was scared because I've never liked somebody like him or whatever,
Sure.
but then I had a really good time and wanted more, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So we just continued.
Well, I kind of took the approach differently than I normally would have. I would normally go off and kiss on the first date and hold hands and all that good stuff. And
Yeah.
I was waiting on her. I was wanting her to make sure that she knew it was more real rather than this, thing that I was already doing before. So
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
That's interesting because that's kind of the approach. I was like in this life-changing moment when I met Jess, and that was the same thing. Like, I don't know, we didn't even
Yeah.
hold hands for like 2 months or something,
Mhm.
and I was like, I don't know if this girl likes me. Like, we'd hung out all the time, but we were like hung out every weekend for like 4 months before we called ourselves boyfriend girlfriend, right?
Yeah, it'd been a
Something
long
like
time.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I don't think
interesting.
you really wanted to say we were boyfriend and girlfriend for a long time.
I don't even think I did even before we left. I left on a mission.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was very less clingy, but I knew I liked her. I just didn't know where it was going to go with it because of the whole guilt culture, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're told not to. Well, the whole lock your heart mission story. Do you remember that whole
Sure.
talk that was done? But
Vaguely, but I know what you're referencing. Yeah.
well, when we first get to the mission, that was what they tell you to read is the lock your heart talk, and it was, if you have a girlfriend, lock her in your heart, keep her there, and hold her until the end of your mission. If you don't have a girl, lock your heart and keep anybody out until you get off your mission. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's interesting.
it was.
Well, it's tough. Like, that was one of the hard. Like, we had actually dropped the love word. Did you guys say you loved each other before you left?
I did.
remember
You
if I
did?
or not.
Mm.
You
But
hadn't, huh?
I mean,
withheld it.
he did, but it wasn't like
I did it
just because I said it. Kind
symbolically.
Of
Yeah.
a thing.
It was weird.
Well, it's hard.
That was weird.
It's hard because I think like
Now I need to
with
know.
as guys, right? You're just I don't know. We're just different creatures. But like when like you're gone for 2 years, we can't date, we can't do anything, and they were like, well, I don't know what's gonna happen. So you kind of do just get it's a little insecurity, I guess, and a little bit of like anything can happen. So I need to like armor myself up, prepare myself for
Yeah.
anything that could happen, and
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
is what it
I'm a
is.
prepare for the worst, hope for the best type guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was preparing that she may not be there.
Totally.
And if anything else happened along the way, meaning that if we fell in love again or whatever, however it worked, it was going to be better than the worst. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, clearly the mission went well enough that you got home.
yeah,
And were like,
I mean,
okay, this
I
is-
guess I could probably
understand.
say I did request to come home and transfer early. We had some family things going on that I wanted to be a part of, and
Cool.
I wanted to try and save a few things. It was just the way things were back then.
Yeah.
Obviously, some of my family, and we won't go into that story because that's not why I'm here. But
Sure.
yeah, there was a lot of family stuff going on, and the family was kind of falling apart. So I felt like I needed to be home, and I did. And it wasn't necessarily because all of it was that. It was more I did want to get home to Amanda. I knew at that time it was going to be, the rest of my life. So
Cool.
Yeah. Cool.
yeah, so it was right around. We get back on track, I guess.
Yeah.
And now we just start talking about other things.
No, it's good. It's good. It gives us the full story. We love it.
Yeah, so getting back to when Bentley was, well, he was.
I was pregnant.
You were
with Ben.
pregnant with him, yeah.
So this was
I
around
remember it very
2011, you
clearly
said?
when you came.
Right
to
around
talk to
2000.
me,
It was
so.
a little. It was 2006, or sorry, 2010,
Oh,
the end
yeah.
of 2010, and yeah, right around that time, I want to say.
I was pretty close. I think. Yeah. I mean, I guess you could say that.
Yeah.
So you've been married about 5 years,
Yeah, and
4.5.
I had started kind of this path, and I was starting to. I didn't know how to really get into that path, but I was in the
You
Elders
found
Quorum
a
presidency.
website though, is what you.
Well, I'll get back to that
Okay,
in a minute.
sorry.
But I was in the Elders Quorum presidency, and really loving it. I was having a good time. I was one of those guys that I would call at the beginning of the month to get my home teaching done. I'd call the families that, or all the guys that needed to do their home teaching and just say, hey, today's the first of the month. You got the rest of the month to get it over with, that kind of stuff. But it wasn't that I was trying to just check the list. I was actually trying to get to know my people. So I would really do it the first of the month to say, hey, when can we come over? So that they had the entire month to think about when I could come over and chat with them, get to know them a little bit. And yeah, I kind of just kept rolling with that. And I became a gospel doctrine instructor shortly after that, and was just studying some stuff and learning about, I don't even remember what the topic was, but I fell into MormonThink.com.
Yep.
This is before you had the Mormon Stories podcast. This is before the letter. This is before everything that's out there. I mean, all the essays that you've got. I just kind of was wanting to know more about specific topics, not because I was looking to leave. I was actually trying to become a better teacher,
Yeah.
to understand more of the doctrine itself, because that's all I ever did on the mission, for example. And prior to the mission, I thought my testimony was pretty much impeccable at the time, because I
Yeah.
had already known more about the church than other people did. And
Well, yeah, even at 13 and 14, you're reading that book. I'm like,
right.
we didn't
Yeah, I
even
didn't even
hear
think
about
about
that book until
Well, his
later.
personality is he doesn't leave it just like scratch the surface. He has to delve
Sure.
into it and like
Yeah.
know everything about whatever it is that he's learning about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, were you kind of in the Bible Belt too, where you were at? Would they call
Oh,
it
yeah.
that?
No,
like
it's
you're
the buckle.
in it.
Yeah, they
Okay,
call it
gotcha.
buckle.
So did you come across a lot of
Mhm.
like things against the church and all that on?
Oh,
that
yeah.
was one thing I did not come across. Like my mission was not that way.
It was daily. So
Okay.
one of the first days I was there, I was in a place called Sunnyside, Houston area. So it's a very, I don't know, it's a very rundown. It was back when we were there. It's a very rundown area. We were the only white boys in the area. And
Gotcha.
we knocked on one guy's door. He ended up being a preacher,
Oh, nice.
which I think there was kind of a dime a dozen down there.
Sure.
But this guy, he invited us in, and then he started chatting with us and asking us if we had a first edition Book of Mormon. And I said, well, no, I don't have one. He says, well, I have one. And so he pulled one out, started going over a couple of things. And again, this is like my first day. I'm just a little greeny with
Yeah,
my
yeah.
my companion, my trainer. And he told me that there were well over 4,000 changes just from the first edition to I think it was the 1970s version, the old blue book that they had.
Yeah.
He had them both side by side, and he pulled out specifics on there. And
He talked to Mormon boys before.
yeah,
Yeah,
he
right.
knew.
He knew his
Not
stuff.
a new thing.
He saw us coming. We were the low-flying mallards in his boat. So it was right after we left, because I didn't say a thing.
Yeah.
My trainer at the time, and Jordan Miles is his name, but we don't really keep in touch anymore. But anyways, he was very, very forthright in coming forward and basically saying, yeah, it's all true. That is exactly what he was saying. It was exactly what it needed to be. Meaning there were well over 4,000 changes, and you just need to accept that.
Yeah.
So I just shelved it. That was one of my first shelving moments on the mission. And then shortly after that, it became, it was blacks in the priesthood. It was all these different topics that I never really jumped into, but they knew quite a bit more than I did.
This is on your mission.
On the
through it.
mission, yeah. And then there was a couple of moments like Seventh-day Adventists we came across a lot of, and I guess Ellen G. White, and this is going back, I used to know a lot more about this, but she was good friends with Joseph Smith, and she had the same type of vision, quote unquote,
Okay.
as he did, where he saw God sitting upon his throne with the heavenly hosts of heaven, or whatever you want to call that scripture that he talks about. But she's had the same type of vision, and the story, at least that I was told when I was there, was that he and Ellen were both talking back and forth to each other via letters, and Joseph had told her his story, and then she stole that story, and then it became like the Seventh-day Adventist
Interesting.
thing.
I was
So-
gonna say I thought I heard they were connected. We were connected somehow, but I couldn't remember. I don't know how I even had that.
Well, and it
thought.
was hard to talk to them because, again, as Amanda was saying, and I'm probably talking way too much, but as Amanda was saying, I tried to learn everything there is to know about it, and in this case, I did. So I tried to learn as much as I could about the Church of Christ, which, if you go back to the history roots of that, from what I could understand on that, there's a little bit of a root there with Joseph Smith as well as Sidney Rigdon and so on. And granted, I'm not the scholar or anything like that. This is just stuff I found. And then
Sure.
Ellen G. White and him were talking, and talking to a Seventh-day Adventist at the time. We were trying to convert, obviously, with the sales tactics that we were given. And we'd say, do you believe that there could be a prophet today? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And you're like, sweet. All right, well, yeah, let's
Check.
get you baptized. They're like, we believe everyone could be a prophet. And you're like, oh, well, we're back to square one. Don't know what I'm doing now. So it was trying to learn from that to see if there was a way to really persuade them out of their current belief and into the new belief that we were trying to introduce to them. So yeah, that was, again, my mission. There was a lot of different circumstances like that came up that I kept shelving left and right. Polygamy became a big thing. Yeah, so getting back on track there, the reason why I bring all that up is because it just kept stacking and stacking and stacking.
So
And
you're
then
you're teaching gospel doctrine, and you're studying everything. You start coming across things. Like what kind of time period was it? Was it like all in one day? Did it unravel over a few months?
So I told her when she was pregnant with our second, and it would have been almost a year and a half since I had been really digging into it. It took me about a year.
I mean, I noticed some things that like he would start talking about, like, did you hear about this, or have you heard, like he would say things. It wasn't necessarily like, hey, I'm not believing this anymore or anything like that. It was more just like, do you know about this or anything,
Yeah.
But he wouldn't go much farther than that. It's just more
Yeah.
like, is he the only one that's ever known this or not known this, or kind of a thing.
But back then, it wasn't really known, some of the things that I
Yeah.
was bringing up. Whereas today, everyone's like, oh, yeah, we've always known about that.
Right, right,
I'm
right.
like, all bullshit. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And how did that, like, when he came to you?
Honestly, I remember it like it was yesterday. I will say that because this is a big like thing in our life, we've built our marriage on this he was very staunch on everything. There were some things that I kind of felt terrible about because I didn't know those things or wasn't great with, knowledge on scriptures and whatever. So
we used to read scripture like every night,
Yeah.
pray together,
Yeah. I mean, it was,
Before we had a kid, we were told we were supposed to pray about it,
Yeah.
together before you did the deed.
yeah. I mean, it was, yeah. It was
Okay.
very like,
It was bad.
Nothing kills the mood.
he was very,
That's cool.
it was like, I know, right? I'm
Have a
like,
good
how
prayer.
did we ever make it through on that?
Let's pray.
I'm telling you, dude. There's a lot of weird culture that.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I never
Yeah.
heard that one.
And he
so-
was like, I'm not even kidding. I don't even know what the word you want to say, but you were very,
I was very staunch.
very, very,
Very
staunch.
orthodox.
yeah, yeah.
It was
Yeah.
the letter of the law, like everything.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
the same way. And I wonder if that's why we struggled too, is because they were like,
The analytical
a-
side.
yes,
Yeah.
and like I won't rob the conversation, I promise. But this was kind of our conversation the other day, like,
Literally last night.
yeah, was it last night?
Yeah.
I'm like, we're talking to Maddie, our oldest, and maybe we can get in that in a little bit, but like, I'm kind of telling them like the doctrine and everything is pretty black and white. Like you make promises and covenant and everything to live a certain way and to do certain things, and we're a little more progressive in this house. So like you're in or you're not. Like what are you doing? And so it kind of led to this whole discussion, and I'm like, no wonder why our kids are confused. Like I have faith in certain things, and I like it, just real plainly, like I pray and I believe in God and Christ, and I try to. Other than that, I keep it there. And then we have like this whole other side where we kind of want to keep the kids in the church, and it's a good foundation and everything like that over here. And so there's conflict. So that's why I'm curious to kind of dive into this. Sorry, and I'll shut up
Oh,
now.
absolutely.
But,
No, I mean, honestly, I was just really surprised because I mean, he basically, and I'll kind of give a little bit of a story because so my dad growing up, he was excommunicated actually right when I was born. And so like
Your dad was
uh-huh.
okay.
Okay.
And so I mean, it wasn't that he was like against the church or like didn't believe it or any of that kind of stuff. It was just, anyways. So
Yeah.
I grew up not having like the priest in our home and like having my dad be there every Sunday. And so, I wasn't like the black and white growing up, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know. And so, anyways, marrying Brandon, it was kind of almost hard for me because I'm like, holy crap, like we can't do anything other than like, you know. And so it
Yeah.
was really hard. And then,
So it was even hard for you.
yeah,
You're like, this is a little
this,
overboard.
it was
It's a lot.
intense. Like
Yeah.
it was a lot, and which I was like, okay, great, you know, whatever. It was good, you know.
Yeah,
and-
because you're like you're just trying to help us be better. We're just trying
Yeah.
to grow. Yeah.
But I mean, my mom was she was like the true blue Mormon type person, very faithful, she was really sighted present twice and incredible. Like she was the most faithful person I've ever met and still to this day, honestly. But anyways, so I had the two different, you know, scenarios, I guess you could say, of my dad not being there all the time. And then my mom would go every week and she'd go to the temple every month, and she made a promise, you know, to do that. And she raised us in the church, and
Yeah.
we were, you know, we knew what was expected, and but yet she gave us choice at the same time. Like we weren't in trouble. Like some people are, you know, they get in trouble because they didn't go to church or whatever, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
She gave us choice, and so it was a little more open, I guess you could say, the way I was raised. And so anyways, so marrying Brandon and changing like the everything letter of the law, it was different. It was hard, yes, but we got used to that, and that's how our relationship started in our marriage and everything. But then he started questioning it, and it was actually the same week that my dad was being rebaptized into the church.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
your dad was not a member for your whole life?
Yeah, I was
essentially, or-
25.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for 25 years, I had wanted my dad to be
Yeah.
rebaptized
Yeah.
back into the church, and
Wow.
you know, and I knew how hard that was for my mom, not having him there all the time, and just, you know,
Sure.
she went to church by her, you know, I mean, with us kids, but she didn't have her spouse with her, you know. And so I grew up knowing all of the hardnesship of that. And anyways, so the week that he actually finally decided to be rebaptized, my husband's coming to me saying,
I'm
You're
done.
like, wait, what the?
The week.
I don't believe it anymore.
The
yeah,
week.
it was the
Okay,
same
so
week.
you didn't come to her until you were done.
Correct.
Okay.
So
I mean, like I said,
You
there
saw
was
little signs.
there
and
was things that he was talking about, and I kind of like, you know, you doubt in the church, like
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
part of your like building your testimony, like that's what you
So-
do, right?
Yeah, but let me kind of also put this into what actually broke the camel's back was the City Creek Center being completed.
Oh, really?
There was a report done by KSL, obviously church owned, that I read, and it was talking about the overall cost. Which fast forward to today, everybody knows now there was some tithing money to went into that.
Yeah.
But back then, I kind of looked into it and read between the lines and saw there was a lot of mismanagement of funds. There was a lot of people getting wealthy that shouldn't have been getting wealthy off of something like that. I mean, you look at just the whole idea that
I actually don't know the whole story of that, but I know there are some people that...
The main thing is for me, it was that it cost $5 billion to build that entire thing. And that talked about like, you know, your apartments, the grocery store, all that kind of stuff, the whole thing, as well as the mall for $5 billion at the time. And I'm thinking, gosh, that's just a lot of money.
Yeah.
So then I started looking at the most expensive building prior to that, which is in Dubai. It cost about $2.1 billion.
Oh,
and
really?
then I started thinking, well, gosh, that's more than double for that, you know, just for that little mall here in Utah. Why would that be even a thing? And then I started thinking, well, gosh, okay, what have they done humanitarian wise over the last 25 years since that time? And it was right around 1.9 billion at the time. In 25 years. I'm going, well, shoot, are we more of a mall building company or, you know, church, or are we more of a humanitarian church? And that's kind of what broke it.
Well, that's interesting because I remember our bishop when we were first married, early on mentioning how much it had cost to build it, and he kind of he thought it was kind of cool, and I was like, yeah, that's freaking that's rad. Like Mormons are cool. Look how much money we have. Like that's how I took it. I'm like, we're pretty freaking.
But not like
talk about. I know it sounds so douchey, but I remember having that thought like. That's freaking baller. Like we just built a $5 billion mall or six. I thought it was actually more than that.
The conservative estimate was right around $5 billion from what KSL had said. And
for some reason I had like 6 or 7 billion in my head, but I don't know. Maybe
well,
it's
the
5.
whole
We'll
thing
go
that comes to
5,
my mind is the phrase Thomas Monson that says, let's go shopping when he cuts the ribbon. It's like, why would God's mouthpiece have to say something like that? You know, Louis Vuitton or whatever. I don't know. Tiffany's.
I'm so sorry. I have to pee again.
You would.
I drink a ton of water this morning.
Go.
We want to pause it or you want to keep going and I'll just jump back in? I don't want to ruin the flow. This is good. This is like getting good at it. I'm like, I don't want to stop. So
You're good.
yeah, if anyone has to go, I'm so sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm just going to wear a diaper the next one.
Gross.
He was just telling me.
Sorry.
Welcome back, Aiden.
Thank you. Back. So the straw that broke the camel's back was the building of the mall, City Creek Mall.
Yeah.
And then your dad is about to get baptized this week. This is just before. And how did the conversation go down?
Yeah.
So the joke is that he was walking in the building and we were high-fiving on the way as I was on the way out.
I mean, because like the whole time we were like dating or married and stuff, he was the one that was like inviting him to go to priesthood session, and like, you know, my dad would always say no. And anyways, and Brandon kept on saying one of these times we're going to get him to go. Like, you know,
it's the time where he would have said yes.
Yeah.
Like my mouth.
And then he
Day late, dollar short, bro.
Could have had a beer together. Too bad.
Right. That's true. So anyways, it was, like we said, it was the same week. And so it was hard. Like, I just remember standing there looking at Brandon like, you're kidding me.
Was this at your house? Were you guys at home?
We lived with her parents at the time.
Yeah,
Her
we
dad,
were in our basement.
Her dad had a health scare, and with my expertise at the time, I'm a respiratory therapist by trade. We moved in to try and help him out, and that was why we were there.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit more dense of a situation, I think, because of what was going on. Meaning that I was having a transition. She was wanting me to stay in. It was John DeLynne's first podcast that he did. It was Why Good Mormons Leave. I don't know if you've ever listened to it. It's very staticky, but John very much just goes into it and basically says stuff to the effect of good Mormons don't leave because they want to sin. They don't want to go off and do all these different things or whatever. They're doing it because they want to become a better gospel doctrine teacher. They want to become a better Elders Quorum president or Relief Society president or whatever, or even just a better home teacher for that matter. This whole ministering thing, I can't say that, but
We laugh because we just had this conversation.
right. So it was that type of the idea that helped me understand that I'm not a bad person for thinking what I was thinking. And so it gave me the courage to actually approach Amanda that week to tell her I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I was trying to have 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and I'm a all in or nothing type person. So
Yeah.
my personality just won't let me allow it to go any other way. And yeah, so I was high-fiving her dad on the way as he was on the way in, and I was on the way out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did that conversation end? Was it just kind of like, we'll continue this later, or did you just need some time to digest it, Amanda, or what was your?
I gave her some time to digest it because she
Yeah.
needed it.
Well, and I will admit now, like because I was pregnant, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, so I still regret that I asked you this, and I'm so sorry. But I looked at him like, so are you gonna like bless this baby? Like, can you do that? And I'm like,
Yeah.
and now I'm sitting, I'm like, that's what I was worried about. Like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
That was so stupid. I mean,
No,
you know,
it's not.
No.
It's-
I did, by the way.
you
Yeah.
did, yeah, great, good for you. You know, and
I
it's
mean,
not a
'cause I
dumb
was literally-
question
I was
because that's
almost
how
ready to have our baby. Like,
Yeah, we were within a month or so.
Well, and at that point,
Yeah.
you were probably still plenty worthy
yeah,
to do
Oh, yeah.
it.
I
It
had
wasn't
done
like it
anything.
was a big
yeah, yeah. It was
no,
just,
no. It was just yeah.
I mean, it is. It's dumb that's what I was worried about, but that's what I was like. It was more of like, okay, so you're saying that you're done, but are you? Like, that's what was my
Just
thought.
questioning.
Like, really? Are
Yeah.
you? Because you were more into this than I was. Like, how
Yeah.
can that be? Like, what? You know? So it was just more just a shock, honestly, and then I was just emotional anyways because my dad was finally like, I've been waiting for 25 years for him to get rebaptized. And I'm like, I'm gaining my dad, but I'm losing my husband. Like, how do I do that? Like, how do I
Right.
manage that, I guess? And it was really hard. Like,
well,
really hard.
mentally, I was struggling to know what to say to her, what to do in this circumstance, because none of us had ever been in this territory, and this
Yeah.
is prior to the exits of most of who we know today have all left.
Yeah,
right?
you were early. Really?
Yeah, yeah.
It was way too early, and so I didn't have anybody to talk to about it. Didn't have an understanding of what I needed to do, and so all I could think of at the time is you know what, communication's been the best for us, so let's just talk about it, talk through it. That's how I was raised. So thanks, Mom and Dad, for that, because
Yeah, that's so great.
we
Good for
didn't
you, man.
we didn't hide behind our words. We tried to talk through them as much as possible, and in this case, I did. And I talked to Amanda and I just said, hey, I want you to know that I am not going against everything that we've already built up to this point. In fact, our beginning is still there. Our backbone is still there of what our relationship is. I choose you over the church. I choose you over anything. And at this point, I was still working through whether I believed in God or Jesus or any of that kind of stuff. But I basically just said, you are my number one, and I choose you. So nothing has changed there. Our temple covenant, all that stuff. Yeah, it is, it's part of the organization, but my promises are still there.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed. And so I don't know if that really helped her or not, but
No, I mean, I obviously it did because we're still here. But no, it was just more of like, at first in my mind, I was sitting there thinking, okay, I've got to change your mind. Like, I've got to make him love this again and like get all these doubts out of his head. Like, that's what I like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, it was a couple of months after he had told me or whatever, and then it was like this realization is like, I can't change his mind. Like, he's going to feel and think the way he wants to, and it doesn't matter what I say, it's not going to change that.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of changing his mind, it was more of the steps of, I'm just going to love him, and if this is his choice, then this is his choice. And it didn't mean that I had to make that choice. It doesn't mean just because he was leaving that I had to.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it definitely has changed a lot of thinking process of like how I thought a lot of situations or ways of like living or whatever, but it didn't change the fact like I still love the church too, and I wanted to stay, and that was okay, and we were going to work on it, and we did. And it was hard. It wasn't easy. It wasn't an overnight thing at all.
Right.
but we didn't tell everybody about it. It was just Amanda and I at this point. And
Yeah.
I did the baby blessing for Bentley,
Mm-hmm.
but it had nothing, spiritual in it. It was more just, you'll be a good man one day. You'll, grow to do this and that if you want. It wasn't
Yeah,
like,
yeah, very.
it was very open, and
Yeah.
there was not a lot of, you're going to be a prophet one day and you're going to bring
Right,
last
right.
dispensation to a close, that kind of stuff. We never brought that up.
Yeah.
It was just very, you're going to be a good kid
Yeah.
and we're going to love you.
Well, I kind of mentioned early on when we were just before we started that we kind of we did this on, hey, we had relationships, and then we had the church thing, and that was hard, and we could talk about that. And I, part of the reason I wanted you guys on is because I'd been on like, um this is not always the best place to go for a lot of reasons, but like ex-Mormon Reddit and all the other not just that, but
Funny you
like,
bring that one up, actually.
but
That
like,
was his place.
yeah, well, then there's like the other groups, Mormon Stories One, or these other groups, and I would read these stories, and it would seriously just like break my heart to read. My spouse is leaving me. I try to talk to them about how I'm feeling. My spouse is leaving me. My kids or my parents are disowning me. I'm out of the will, or I feel like I need to come clean and finally tell my parents where I'm at. They've already disowned all my other siblings that have left. I don't know what to do. And I got thinking this too when you were talking about your grandpa that was a Baptist and converted over, and it was hard for his parents, you were saying, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, we celebrate so much people getting converted into Mormonism, and we try to give them this, like, put an arm around them. And I remember actually my stepmom, she was a convert, and her family had a really hard time with her being baptized. It was actually when I was like in ninth grade. But you don't think about when people leave Mormonism,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah.
all the same.
Yeah.
It's the same
It is.
exact story of people having the same
Heartache,
struggles.
all that. Yeah.
Change.
Yeah. And so I was like, man, like I thought it would be awesome to have you guys on. Like, how have you made it work, or how was divorce even something that came across your mind?
Oh,
Was
it definitely
like,
was
Yeah.
there. I actually told her, I said, I understand if you wanted to divorce me, go find some other guy.
I
that
do
can
have
take
to
you
say,
a
I
temple.
never actually thought of divorce.
really?
Yeah.
But I gave her the
Myself.
option.
Yeah.
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 That's awesome though.
And it's funny you brought up Reddit. So Reddit, it was fairly new around this time when I had kind of gotten out of the church portion of it. I was, maybe this is telling you how old I am in that subreddit, but there was only maybe 200 people that had actually
Oh, wow.
subscribed to that subreddit at the time. One of the main guys that really helped me through it, which he's not there anymore, his screen name is still there, and I've been friends with him on Facebook for a while, but his ID was Mithrin.
Huh.
Mithrin was probably the most influential for me on that transition than anybody else I could actually imagine. I mean, John DeLynn helped me through it a little bit as well. He's a little controversial these days, but
Yeah.
I don't think he chooses to be that way. I think he's just part of his platform that he's in right now. But Mithrin, he was a guy who went through the same type of transition, was very analytical, was very much into the deep doctrinal stuff, was not in the angry portion of it.
Cool.
Because there is a few stages of when you leave, and
Totally.
that
No
anger
doubt.
stage is very difficult. But he helped me understand what I needed to do with my wife at the time, and he basically told me straight up. He says, "You just got to be upfront with her, tell her everything that you're going through, and if she can be there to support you, great. If not, know that she is there. At least that's all." So anything that was controversial that would maybe break her heart or something to that effect, bring it to the subreddit first to work through the anger portion of it, and then take it to her shortly after that, which is what I did. So I've got a big history of Reddit. Reddit was my go-to for all of my backside that I never really showed everybody. It was more of a dark area that for me, I was very in a dark place at the time. Was able to understand my thought processes, where things were going, and that's why I gave her that option. I understand if you want a divorce, I'd support that.
Yeah. It's hard.
Well, and honestly, I was glad that, I mean, he got that feeling that he should bring it to me, because prior to him actually telling me, like, I'm done, whatever, there was like, it was more, he was kind of closed off. Like, he wasn't really wanting to talk about things like he usually wanted to. And there was always something there. Like, I'm like, what's up? Like, you're not sharing things like you usually would. And
Well, mentally, I feel like I was probably on that path of suicidal at
Yeah.
the time. It was dark for me. Very, very dark time.
Man.
And I knew, I mean, it was obvious. I mean, husband and
Yeah.
wife, you should know there's something up, like, but he just didn't say anything. And finally he did. And it was definitely hard at that time, but I mean, now even looking back, I'm just like, I'm so grateful you did, because honestly, I don't think we would have made it if he wouldn't have, you know?
Yeah.
Even though it was a hard conversation, it was, I mean, I can't speak for him, but I'm sure it was like so terrifying to come and say that, because that's a big thing, especially with how staunch he was. And, you know, it's a big change. And
Well, and I think everybody's journey in or out, especially I guess since we're on this topic, like it's different. And it's almost like, I almost think about it like if you're studying the gospel and you're like, at what point do you actually know enough that you want to get baptized? Like, at what point do you know enough or feel enough that you're like, this doesn't make sense anymore? And I was in and out, and then I think I was in, out, and then in for a little bit, and I was just like, ugh. Like it all just kind of came down at once, and I was just like, well, I'm done. Like I can't.
The weight just becomes too much.
Yeah, I just couldn't do it anymore. Right.
well, and especially because, I mean, that's how you were raised, right? Like,
totally.
This is your whole life. Like, you've never necessarily seen anything different, you know?
Totally.
And so to say like you're walking away from something like that, that's hard.
Yeah.
Because where do you go from here? You know, like what do I believe? What do I
You're
want for my life? You know?
Yep. Yeah,
Were
restarting.
Were there signs of like, did you guys stop praying as much together, like less scripture study stuff? Were there things like that?
Yeah.
Then it just kind of became normal, so you didn't worry about it too much? Was it stuff like that? And then
So I transitioned away from the Book of Mormon and the Doctrine and Covenants and started moving towards Bible. And I just wanted to kind of stick with the old Christian root.
Yeah.
Just to stay away from the LDS portion of it. And that's what I started teaching in gospel doctrine and things. It's just, hey, this is what the Bible says, and this is what we need to go off of. So I was,
so you were still teaching during all this too.
yeah.
So you just kept the calling and
Still
just
kept going.
studying
And then when I finally went to Amanda and told her, I says, I'm done. It was at that moment I asked to be released. And then shortly after that, and I'd say 6 months, maybe it was a year, but either way, I had to sit down with your parents. So it would have been almost a year. Yeah, we sit down with your parents.
Sorry, it's like very in my head, because there's certain things that happen that like it was
association.
December, so.
I blocked a lot of it because it was so dark.
Yeah, for sure.
I was still trying to figure things out, but we had to sit down and discuss with her parents that I no longer believed it anymore, and I wasn't,
because we were in the same ward, like we lived
in the same
they
house.
needed to know what was going on.
So I broke the news to them, and I can't remember your mom's response, but your dad was very turned off by it and not as loving as, obviously he just wasn't that way for me, but your mother, she seemed to accept it.
Yeah,
and
was very
she says,
loving.
we're going to be here for you, and you're going to be a part of our family, and nothing's going to change. You're still the same person. So
cool.
That's
she
how
was very accepting, and
she's very
that's sweet.
respectful. So.
She learned from the 25 years your dad
Yeah,
had
I was
been.
gonna say that probably
understands.
didn't.
Yeah.
But then it's in that same conversation that I looked at him and I said, there's no chance I'm coming back.
Is that what you said?
Literally no chance I am coming back.
And I'm sure, I mean, I can't talk for her, but I'm
She
sure
had it
she
in her
probably
mind.
thought,
Yeah,
we'll see
we'll
about
I
that.
beg to differ. It's just a phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So communication was big. Turns out it
No,
was.
that's awesome.
Honestly, like, if I could tell anybody that's going through this or having any issues like that, communication is number one.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know something's happening, how are you supposed to fix that? Or not necessarily fix it, but go about it. Like, you got to talk about it.
Yeah. And I know for me, it was like, I could be more empathetic of what he was going through as opposed to just being mad that he's being a butt, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where you're like, help me help you here. What are you going through so that I can help? And what can I do to support you at this time? But I can't if you don't allow me to. Right. So I am very grateful that you gave him that advice from the get go, because it would,
Sure.
it could be a totally different story here too. So,
Well, what I had learned from early on, and the reason why I gave that advice, it wasn't so much that came from me or anything else. It was obviously that guy on Reddit, Mithrin, who told me to be completely upfront and honest with your wife. And if she wants to hang out with you, then she'll hang out with you. If she doesn't, then you just have to respect that and you guys go separate ways. And in this case, obviously we stay together and y'all did the same thing. I would say though, on what we just said, yes, communication is key, but you have to do it not necessarily strategically, but you have to do it on specific terms. And the reason why I say it that way is because you can't just walk into church one day and you're giving a talk and then it's at the same time to say, you know what, I'm done. Joseph Smith had 36 wives. You know, there's 4 different first visions. You can't do that. You can't go with that type of platform. And so the only way you're going to gain respect from somebody else for doing so is to give respect. And in this case, that was what we had to do. And we had to go to my in-laws first on that because we lived with them. And then the discussion after with my parents. And I'll kind of preface this portion of it is it was very hurtful at the time.
Yeah.
But we've worked through a lot of those since then, and our relationship is good now.
Good.
Cool.
But at the time when my parents had heard that I was leaving, again, it's a different contrast because Amanda's the youngest, I'm the oldest. They've never had something like this happen.
Right.
And all the other kids are not married. Well, I think Bryson wasn't, maybe even Bradley. No, Bradley wasn't married yet.
It was
Because it was his wedding. It was right before his wedding that I had to sit
and
down.
he didn't want to bring it up until he had to his parents.
Yeah.
I waited and waited because I was worried about the judgment. I was worried about being kicked out of the family. The whole stuff that you were reading on Reddit
Yeah.
was very real to me,
Yeah.
at least on my side of the family. And so we called my parents and said, hey, you guys have some open time. I think it was on a Saturday. Maybe it was a Sunday. I can't remember. But we sat down I said, hey, you got about a half an hour to an hour to chat. And we sat
We
down.
might want to say it was right before your brother got married.
Yes, it was like a week before my brother got
And
married.
so we were going to be going to the temple.
I wasn't
Obviously,
going to be in the temple.
Yeah.
So
So
he
you
had
it's
to say
like
why he wasn't gonna be there.
This was the
now
grand
have to
reveal.
face it.
Yeah.
And they had no idea at this point. Just
No, they did
Really?
not have any
Yeah.
idea. So
Yeah.
the grand reveal was coming, and I needed to make sure they had the preface for it out of respect for them.
Yeah.
So I had sat there. Amanda and I were on the couch at the house that they were living in Alpine, and one thing led to another, and I basically told the story. Kind of kept out of the specifics as to why I was leaving, and
Yeah.
I just looked at them and I said, "Hey, I'm done. Not going to be in the church anymore, and I'm out." And they broke down in tears, and they were it was very much an emotional moment. And I remember one thing that my mother had said, which maybe I'll regret for saying this, but like I said, we worked through it. She said that I wish you would have told me you were coming out gay rather than leaving the church. I was like, why? That would be a double whammy. That's what I told her. That would mean I'm not staying in the church.
Yeah, at
and
least
I'm
I have
gay.
my
I'm
family,
losing my
like-
marriage.
Oh my gosh.
Right. But you know what? I think I've read and heard other parents have a similar reaction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sitting here thinking like it's sad that you feel that we have to have these conversations even. Like
Sure.
can't Brandon just be an adult and not go?
Yeah,
And
then-
talk to your brother and leave it at that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like
well, it's just like how my mother was.
It's-
We love you. Like we understand you're
awesome,
going through
yeah.
this. It was very accepting. It wasn't how terrible you are, and
when I
Well,
look at how many bad reactions, dude,
Yeah.
I'm very reactionary. She will tell you with our kids, especially. I have to like, if I can just bite my tongue for a minute and breathe, then it's usually a lot better. And I'm
Right.
Correct.
38, damn near, and still learning this. But so you almost can't blame them either, right?
No,
Like,
and I can't. I won't.
and
You know,
and with
it
the way
was-
you
it was
raised
a-
them, yeah,
it was a big deal for them to hear something.
Yeah.
Their
For sure.
oldest child is coming back. The one who was pulling all the other ones to church. The one who was teaching them all the doctrine.
everybody would go to him with doctrinal questions. Like he was.
Yeah.
He was the walking Book of Mormon. Let's just say.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Horrible
Yeah.
as it may
And
sound.
like, and you,
now.
That's great.
you in that spot probably
Cringe.
would have maybe had the same reaction that your parents had, right? If
Probably,
they're a kid,
yeah.
right? So it's one of those things where, in all fairness, yeah, we give you, we
At
give
the time,
everybody
it was
grace
very
because
hurtful.
absolutely,
So
He just needed somebody
Absolutely.
to love him. Is all he needed.
absolutely.
So once we talked about it, we talked it through it. They wanted to ask questions as to what specifics, the reasons why. I think they had the inclination or the thought that maybe I had cheated on Amanda. There was some things that had come.
Because we
out
didn't
about
say
that.
a lot of details like why he.
We just
even
said I'm
had
done.
doubt or
Yeah.
And they never. Well, they never got any of the specifics as to why, and it was because I didn't want to bring those up to them to
Right.
help them in their testimony. And I basically just said, if you're believing it right now, why would I want to destroy something that you hold dear and that you're loving and you're wanting to be a part of? I don't want your world to become dark like mine has. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much truth to that. Yes, first, thank you for the advice you gave us because that really helped our marriage a lot.
Sure.
And we've talked about this some on here already, but like the church was the one thing we felt like we had in common.
Yeah.
We grew up very different and have a lot of the different, even today, like we like different music and different movies, and her family sings and dances, and mine likes a little bit of sports and some swear words and some hunting and stuff, a little bit of redneck.
Some swear
You can,
words.
what did we say? You could, you can,
Just throw that in
you
there.
can take the man out of the trailer, but you can't take the trailer out of the man, And maybe it wasn't actually a trailer, but we lived in some pretty interesting duplexes and apartment buildings. So. But what was I gonna say? that I guess I just relate with you. Like, even my little sister, there's other family that it's still hard to for this day that didn't go to the temple. I have a younger sister that got married about a year ago, and I remember having to be like I just walked up to her and I said, I am so sorry that I'm not, and I don't think she knows I've kind of had my struggles or whatever, but I don't think she really understood where I was at. And I'm like, I'm not going to be there. And it breaks my heart that I would go in a heartbeat. I just can't lie to get in.
Yep.
I'm not going to do it. And I wish that would be something the church would change eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And, cause there's some, even other people like that are believing members have told me that their parents couldn't go to the temple with them to see them get married. And I'm like, that is freaking heartbreaking.
My dad couldn't go. And that was
Yeah.
hard. He would leave us at the door and we'd give him a hug. And that was tough. Like to walk away from somebody that you loved and
tough
couldn't
for
be
him.
there. Like,
Totally.
and it was terrible.
And like, no matter what, like, yeah. Anyway, and I remember being on the other side of that though, and having someone else I knew that was close to me getting married and seeing that her husband's parents couldn't go, and I'm like, well, that's their problem. Like, they should straighten their stuff out. You know what I mean? So it's interesting how you step back, right? You can tell you have a lot of patience and you've kind of learned from it, and it's like, man, it takes a lot of grace and patience for both sides, and a lot of maturity and a lot of experience and understanding. Yeah,
because they could lie their way through it and go.
Yeah.
They wanted to.
Totally. And in some ways it would be easier, other than if we have a conscience, it's just not, it's not possible. So
then,
damn it all, you know?
Right. So then I had actually talked to Bradley, my brother, and told him that I wasn't going to be there. And that was when I revealed it to the rest of the family.
And
but
he
it
was respectful to you.
Very much so. Yeah. And so during that moment where I was talking to my parents, the one caveat they threw at me was, do not talk to your siblings about this. If you did, then we would disown you. And we would keep Amanda in the family. If you guys divorced, we would keep Amanda, and you would not be a part of the family. So,
Man, yeah.
And that was hard to hear. Like,
just
being his spouse was like, oh, wow.
But this is obviously good now. Everything's good.
Sure.
At the time, it was very hard.
It was tough.
We already know that would
Absolutely.
be the case if we got divorced, so.
That's because I'm cooler than you
They
are.
pretty much have told us that without knowing my issues with gospel stuff.
Obviously, I was on my path towards the anger stage of leaving. So
yeah,
it was.
And that's the
adding
thing is,
fuel
you
to
go
the
through
fire.
phases like where you're figuring it out, getting angry. Like, it was very dark at this time. Yeah,
I was in an anger stage for a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard
So
to
that
work
brought
through.
He hated
for
everything.
sure, just fuel on the fire there.
Yeah.
yeah.
Got angry about it all.
She still thinks I'm angry sometimes. She told me that last night, and I'm like, I get intense and passionate about it,
Feel
especially when I'm like, I was telling Maddie, I'm like, it almost like ruined our family. I'm like, when we were talking the other night, last night, I'm like, it almost like tore everything I love away from me, and
It could have.
It could have, and I'm like, do you get that, like that? And I'm like almost getting emotional, and I get intense about it because like that is a big deal to me. But I'm not angry. I'm just like. That pisses me off. Yeah, it pisses me off that was the case because of this.
It's your heart and soul. I mean,
Yeah.
Because you're so ingrained in it, and it's so everything, you know. And then you kind of step back, and now I'm kind of like, okay, I used to be able to kind of be told what to do and not to do, and now I get to choose for myself. And
That's
and
scary.
I have, dude,
Yeah.
I have done some
It's a big
freaking. I'm
deal,
like,
yeah.
I've gone out and lived a little more and learned some hard things, and then full on. And we talked about this the other day, but midlife crisis and. Just trying to kind of regroup and figure out like, okay, what do I want for the second half of my life? You know, really.
Yeah. Well, because during that same time, I was trying to figure out. Well, this is before I even told you that I was leaving. Is that I at this point decided I'm throwing the baby out with the bathwater because I did the same thing with Mormonism that I did with Christian faith in general. So. I actually, my belief, if we want to get into that,
Sure.
Yes.
I don't have a belief in God. I don't believe in an afterlife or any of those things. I believe the only way you can live forever is through whatever you did now, and in that your children will take on throughout their life, and essentially you become almost legendized at that time, if that's even a word. But it's because of the example and the motion that you set in your life that kind of put them on their path towards greatness. That's the only way in my book that we can live forever, or even together for that matter, because it's those stories, almost like Coco, the movie Coco.
Yeah.
Okay.
You remember,
Okay.
Yeah.
remember me type thing. And that's kind of the idea that I kind of taken on over really it was during that same time, but I was very angry because if there was a God, he was a little like 6-year-old child that had a magnifying glass and it was burning ants,
Yeah.
That's
sure.
the type of prick I was thinking of. Obviously, that's not, if there is a God, that's not the type of God that he would be, or he or she, or for that, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I've kind of taken the approach of agnostic. So if there is something, I'm grateful for it. But if there isn't something, then I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
So if there is a God that will meet when we die and pass through whatever veil there is there, I don't think I'll be held accountable to the standards that I've grown up to. I think I'll be held accountable for the type of person that I was, the type of individual I taught towards my children, as well as the people that I was around. If I was I don't know if it's necessarily I have all these gold stars in heaven that I've been pushing out there, and the black marks have been slowly erasing or whatever. But I feel like as long as you have a good heart, if there is something there, you're going to be rewarded with whatever it is. And if there isn't, I'm okay with that too.
Yeah.
I'm totally fine with that. So I've kind of let go of caring about tomorrow and worrying more about today.
How has that felt overall in your life, like internally? Do you feel more relief from that? Do you feel
when
did
you
it
can
take
let
a
go
while
of
to-
it, when you can let go of the potential that there is something that you're going to be held accountable for later,
Yeah.
you focus on the today. And I know there's a lot of people that might listen to that and think, oh, well, then why don't you go drink? Why don't you go have sex, murder somebody, all the different things that you would normally never do.
Yeah.
You're not going to be that person. If you were that person and church was the only thing that held you to it, then you're an ass. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just the way it is, right?
The wheels would have come off in another way.
It would have,
eventually,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, so if you're going to be who you're going to be.
Yeah.
And in this case, I felt like I was still a good person. So, I mean, at least obviously I'm
You are a good
biased.
person.
But
For sure. Well, I think we know that internally, right? Where
Yeah.
we stand. Like,
yeah.
I was talking to a family member of mine just recently, very recently, and over the weekend, and they've dealt with some issues, like different addiction issues and things, and now they've kind of gone from like that to like totally gotten rid of the addiction and have like doubled down on the church stuff, which is great. Like if they're finding real help there, and I'm like, that's great, good for you, man, that's awesome, but as I kind of see myself, what am I trying to say? Like I kind of see in them what I used to see in myself, that was like, if I was struggling, it was because I wasn't living perfectly.
Yeah.
And now I'm not having blessings because God isn't going to bless me for not being who I should be.
Sure.
And so we live in, like, we were kind of talking about this history, but we live in the shoulds, and then sometimes maybe we overcorrect, and they've kind of done that and gone super hardcore, like so hardcore that I'm like, hopefully they can stay there and not like slip out if something goes crazy, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at him and I just said, dude, like even if you died while you were dealing with your addiction stuff, I think God at the end of the day, this is just gospel by Hayden, okay? I'm like, even if you get to God, I think he knows like what is in your heart. Like, yeah, you have
I
some
would
stuff
second that.
Yeah.
yeah, like we're not fooling God here, dude. I think there's so many of us that are like, we just think we check these boxes, and just because we slipped up for a little while or a few years or 10 years or whatever it was, like, and we make it back, like, you don't think God already knows that you would have made that back? He doesn't know who's really deep down in your heart, like who you really are, And it kind of comes around to there's a random thought, like of talking about like family disowning us. I'm like, if we leave or have a struggle, it's like, well, don't you believe in a God that you can pray to at any time? Like if he's not giving up on me or he's not giving up on you, why would you give up on them?
Right.
You know what I mean? And we have these like double standards we don't even realize we even have, or these kind of, to me, a little bit wonky thoughts of like, oh, I need to be perfect, but like God knows your potential, and I think that's our half of our journey and struggle here is trying to realize that potential and try to find joy in the journey, because it's a pain in the ass here sometimes,
Sure.
Yeah.
No,
and
man.
hopefully, and none of us know anything,
Right.
right? We have beliefs and we've had experiences that kind of we build on, and we kind of get these beliefs and everything. But yeah, I think you do, whether you're Mormon or not, I think you have to kind of come to this realization of like, I really hope it's this way, and I hope I can have my family forever, and I hope this, you know what I mean? But unless God came and talked to you, like, it's hard to.
But again, it goes back to how I am. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
preparing for the worst if there is nothing, and hoping
Yeah.
for the best if there is something. And if
Yeah.
there isn't, that's okay.
Yeah. So you,
Will we know?
Well, I
Does
have
it
to
go
say-
dark,
I have to
Will it
say
matter?
for Brandon, like before he was a lot about like he lived with a lot of shame. Like when he
Oh, big
was
time.
full in the church, like that's kind of his whole mind process was like he had a lot of shame.
Dude, our group of friends, that's all we lived off of is
Yeah.
the shame.
Oh man, I relate with that so much. I just see, yeah.
It was hard, and so I mean, it was a difficult way of, you know, always having that in the back of your mind, like I do this and this is, you know, whatever. But I feel like ever since he has left the church, he's more had that mindset, like he's talked about, like this is today, like we don't know if we have it tomorrow. And
So there's two things like what she's talking about there is that I think LDS culture and maybe just religion in general always talks about what's to come as opposed to what's here now.
Yeah.
So if we can kind of take away from this that if you can stop looking at tomorrow and pay attention to what's in front of you right now, right here, right now, at least you have the guarantee of now. There is no guarantee of tomorrow.
Yeah.
So you may take your day a little differently. You may not look at, you know, your screen a little bit longer, or you may decide to do that trip that you wouldn't normally do, or whatever. I mean, you try to make that day better than you otherwise would have because you're not worried about tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to come whether you choose to or not, but you may never actually get to tomorrow too at the same time. You always have today. You always have now. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is that I think the LDS culture always pushes perfectionism. And the more you think about perfectionism, it's like, okay, if something is perfect, you kind of lose interest in it because it's no longer, you know, that thing that you're going after anymore. It's the imperfections, I think, that we all are drawn to as humankind, as mankind for that matter. And so that was something I went to Amanda on a lot of times. And this is in other discussions that we've had, is that I am drawn to her imperfections. I love her for who she is.
good thing, because I have a lot of them.
Because
Whatever.
we're all taught to go after that perfect version of ourselves. And I think that is so lame. I really do. I think that perfect version, first of all, doesn't exist. It's a promise that'll never come.
Yeah.
And it's the imperfections, I believe, that we should all be celebrating and understanding better because it's who we are. The
I love it.
imperfections is who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's always a place to work on. Like
Mm-hmm.
nobody is perfect, like you were saying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I love that. That's awesome.
Anyway.
Thank you. Yeah.
So what does it look like now in your family? Because before it was like we're reading scriptures every night and whatever, right? Saying our
yeah, we
prayers.
don't do
It's
any of that.
evolved.
Yeah. As it should, right?
I know y'all have talked about how you're more progressive in your household.
Yeah.
I would say we're very more progressive compared to other households as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some things we kind of hold to, but other things we don't. You can probably attest to that more than
I
will.
mean, our biggest thing is you just want to live the best life you can. Like that's what we push in our family. Like our children, we don't guilt them on like, okay, you have to go to church tomorrow. Like, you know, it's more of like we give them a choice. Like, okay, do you want to come with mom to church or would you rather stay home with daddy? A lot of times they like to stay home with daddy because they get to stay in their jammies and watch whatever they want. And
But it's
you
not
know.
always that way.
No.
A lot of times they will wake up and still want to go.
Yeah.
And you're gone and I'll take them. Like last week we
Yeah.
had that. So
You will go and take them if they
I won't go to church. No, I'll drop
No,
them
take
off.
them to
Gotcha.
church.
Yeah.
So we're trying to teach our kids to be more authentic, their
Yeah.
authentic selves.
We
You have
want them.
great. By the way, you have awesome kids. You have great kids.
Okay.
They are pretty
You're they really are awesome. Like I can't say that for all my friends' kids. Some of them know they have shitheads for kids, but like, but like anyway, like we could hang and like, we would feel good about it from our standpoint for whatever it's worth. But yeah, it was like super respectful, really nice kids, and I know they all.
Well, and honestly,
kids,
it's
but-
more we want them to do it for themselves instead of you have to do it. Like,
Expectations.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
honestly, that's how I feel like I was raised pretty much. Like I had a choice of what I wanted to do. Like, I mean, my mom,
She was very persuasive though.
well, no, I wouldn't say that. We knew what she expected. Like she hoped that we would want to go and we would want to be with her. And, you know, she had hopes for us. It wasn't that she was going to shame us because we didn't choose to do that or whatever. Like,
But most of your siblings had left and you were the last one. You were kind of raised on your own. And so I think the idea in your mind was, I want to be the best. for my
no,
mom.
I mean, because my sister was still, she got married in Temple.
That's
and
true. That's
everything,
true.
so-
When you say left, you mean left the church or left the house?
Well, they just weren't
Or both?
active.
Okay. Are you? Are any
I
of
wouldn't
your siblings-
say, I mean, all of them
They probably all still believe something
Yeah,
right
they
now.
believe it, but it's not like they actively
Not the same
go
lifestyle
every
they
Sunday
want.
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
But today, I think our household, we have the extremes. So the extreme of me not being there at all, and we have the extreme of her being there to the extent. Now, I've kind of moved towards the middle a little bit. She's moved towards the middle, and I think that's what kind of happens. You kind of blow the house up and wait for the dust to settle, and wherever it
Yeah.
settles is essentially the middle line
Hmm.
that you're trying to hold to as much as possible. But even then, that's changed. That line's changed every so often. New things that come up, like when Adeline was wanting to be baptized, that was a struggle for me because I was very much in that dark
and she's our
hate,
oldest, just so
Yeah.
people
anger
know.
stage, and I was very much against it. And so my consultation to Amanda on this was, I want Adeline to be able to come to me and tell me that she wants to get baptized and to give me reasons as to why, not just because her friends want to do it or whatever. It's just part of the
Was she
tradition.
doing it for herself, or was it because
Sure.
she felt like she had
Oh,
to?
she was
It was part of it.
scared to death.
No.
Well, it wasn't that she was scared. It was just more like she really wanted to be baptized, and she didn't want her daddy to say no. And so it was more like, am I gonna make him realize like this is what I want? You know,
Yeah.
that's what she was scared more because she wanted it so bad.
So any of the church stuff like that they want to be a part of, they still have to run it through me, along with, if there's anything else outside of church, they have to run it through Amanda. So we both have a say in everything that's going on in our kids' lives, but we want our kids to be the ones that decide those things. And it's not that I would hold them away from those, but it's more making them think about it. So in Adeline's case, we wanted her to really think about what she was doing, because at the time I was reading, gosh, you can be 8 years old and join a church, but you can't be able to leave the church until you're 18.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted her to know that there was more to life than just what
Is
her
that
friends
right
do.
though? Actually, they won't let you sign off to get out until without an
Granted,
adult.
if you wanted to be baptized in the church, I don't know if I think they've gone around it, but
Yeah.
you have to have both parents okay with it.
Okay.
If you had separate
After-
families.
After you're 8, right? Like,
Once you're 8 years old, if they wanted to be baptized,
Before 18.
if you had a split family where they were divorced or whatever, both families have to say yes.
Yeah.
Or both
Yeah.
spouses, I should say, parents for that matter. I could be wrong, but I want to say that's what the manual had said.
I'm sitting here wondering, and I'm like thinking, like, oh, Taft literally got baptized like 3 weeks ago, and they kind of just assumed, I think, that we were both
And I think
okay
that's
with
what
it.
happens.
So
It's the assumption.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I think there were a lot of times, even in the past, where people were baptized without the other parent's permission.
Yeah.
And that could bring up some legal issue even today,
Yeah.
for that matter. So
Makes sense.
I held that standard that we both had to be okay with it.
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's because they know that you're not a part of the church and whatever, but I've actually been asked on every child, like, will they be baptized or not? Like our 7-year-old, she'll be baptized if she chooses to in September.
this year,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And at the beginning of the year, they said, we just want to be respectful. Like, is this something that, and I'm like, well, if she chooses to, that's
Yeah.
the thing. It's her choice. Like, and if she chooses not to, for whatever reason, then that's what she wants, and so far the 2 have been baptized, and then obviously in September, I don't know what she's going to pick, but
Yeah.
anyways,
So
so
back then it was more me hoping my kids would ask questions, and they didn't.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to throw it at them just like I did with my siblings. But over the years, Adeline and Bentley have asked questions, and I've given them my answers as to what I think about certain topics of the church. And I do remember when Adeline was very young, though, she would come home and she said that I was going to go to the bad place because her teacher had talked about that, and how people who don't go to church are going to go to the bad place, to go to hell, things like that. So she was in tears,
Oh.
thinking that was going to be the case. And I had to explain to her that, this is the way I put it to try and give it a little bit lighter feel for it, because she was very much into Santa prior to that and had just learned that whole thing. And I basically just told her, I said, hey, you know what? The same reason why we throw Santa at you to be better for the entire year is what they do when it comes to heaven and hell for adults.
There you go. Yeah.
Is to keep you in
Little
line.
humor in there,
It's just
sure.
the way it is. So I kind of threw that at her, and She was able to understand it a little bit better. So anytime those type of conversations come up, she doesn't get emotional about it anymore. She kind of just says, "Oh, it's just what they think," and I know my family, I know my parents, and everything's good. So
Yeah.
I think I mean, it's taken us time because we weren't like this perfect parent or anything, and we're not, still not. But anyways, I feel like over the time, our kids have learned like, you can't be a perfect person all the time, but you can still be a good person. Like, I think the biggest thing is for myself, I don't know if he sees this or not, Brandon, but I try to teach my kids, like, just because your daddy's not going to church does not make him a bad person.
Yeah.
Just because he doesn't have the same belief as, most do in the church does not make him a bad person, so don't ever make somebody make you feel like your dad's a bad person, because he's a good person, and he is, just because that's who he is, he doesn't have to have the church to be a good person. And so it's kind of open, in my opinion, it's opened up, they can see people as who they are instead of what they're doing, if that makes sense. Like, you can still be a good person. You don't have to have an LDS, Church of Jesus Christ to say this is a good person, And so
it goes back to
if that makes sense.
Being authentic, be your authentic self.
Yeah.
That as long as the church is not who you think you are,
yeah,
then you're fine. That's what we're trying to teach our kids, is to be who you want to be, as
to be
opposed to
open,
what everybody else
basically.
wants you to be.
Being open to everyone that.
Well, just being open to ideas too. Yeah.
How has your faith adjusted, Amanda, with all of it? Is that part of it? Like being like, okay, are you kind of coming to church? Well, I don't want to speak for you. I want to know, and then we can.
Well, no, I mean, it's obviously it's made me look at things differently. I mean, in a, I guess a more open-minded way, I guess. I don't even know how to say. I mean, I think I'm more open with, like, I'm not so letter of the law like we started, and
You've kind of gone back to what you were growing up with. So you accept people for who they are, and you don't judge them for the acts that they do.
Yeah. So
Does the eternal family thing concern you or worry you, or?
Yeah, it does.
So that's a topic that came up because it's come up over the years, and we haven't really worked through it, but we continually try to work through it. And that is, I've always wanted to resign from the church. I haven't resigned, so I still have a membership. And,
okay.
We're still there. And the reason why was because
I asked him to.
she wanted me to stay.
Because my biggest thing is, like, I want my children to be still to me, right? Like, I want them born underneath the covenant, and that was very, and still is very important to me. And so for him to be, like, taken off the records or whatever, it would kind of
make her look like a sister that was single. And
well, no, not I don't care about that. I mean,
on the records it would look that way.
People still, like, I will say a funny story. So most of the time, they don't know my the story of us or whatever. And so a lot of people think I'm this single mom bringing my 4 kids, whatever. And there was one time where we hadn't had our last, and I came pregnant, and this lady looked at me like, oh no, you're one of those, or whatever. I'm like, no. And anyway, she found out later that we're happily married, and anyways, so people even with that, they think that I'm a single mom, whatever. So I'm not worried about that. It was more of the fact of, like, they're being born underneath the covenant, because that's important to me.
Yeah.
So, but he was being respectful, and because we were still having kids, and he didn't take his name off the church because it wouldn't have that happen. So
does it break your ceiling with your kids to you? If it does, it would take all that off. In
retrospect, I guess you could say that, but something I found out even around that same time when I was asking her if I could remove my records. This is before quitmormon.com or I can't remember what it was.
Quitmormon.org or something.
Something to that effect. It was before this came up, but they were talking about it on the Reddits, and I had approached her and I asked her about it, and then we started talking more about it on Reddit, and there was someone on the inside. This is before Mormon Leaks, but Mormon Leaks came out eventually and talked about how even if you resign from the church, you haven't resigned from the church, meaning that your record is still kept, and it's just moved out of local area and it's moved to Salt Lake. And then what they do is every every general conference where they talk about the overall census, meaning that how many members there are, you're still counted as a member at that point.
Really?
And there's more. I think it goes into like you're 120 years old or whatever. So even if you pass away, they're still counting in that same number of 16 million, 17 million, or whatever it is. People that have passed on all the way up until about 120 years old. That's part of the internal records that they had brought out during that Mormon leaks time.
Ah,
So
interesting.
even at that point, I was like, oh, freak, I guess I don't even need to resign because it doesn't matter. I'm still going to be counted. Because I wanted to go protest almost out of principle to the church that I want to be out, because there was a huge quit at that time. Like when the quitmormon.org or whatever it is came up, there was a day that was set aside. I can't remember what it was, but I want to say it was right around November 15th or so. It was having to do with protesting the LGBTQ thing that the church had brought up with families that were you know, gay and things like that. And then that principle was slowly reversed back, right?
Yeah.
So those things had come up, and
I was on my way to the temple with her.
Oh, really?
When that got reversed, actually. I remember going to the Provo Temple that day with Andy. They were in town.
Oh, yeah.
It was that. I'm like, they just reversed that policy they put in like 4 years ago or something.
Yeah.
It was something like that.
So it was around that time I was thinking, well, this might be the moment because my kids are all born, everything's fine. And then obviously I looked more into it, and Reddit had kind of brought up all the different things with it, and then Mormon leaks and so on. And that's when I was like, you know what? It doesn't even matter anymore because they're still going to do what they're going to do. Legally, even before, I want to say it was prior to 1990-ish, somewhere in there, you couldn't even resign from the church. The church wouldn't allow you to. They would put you into this category of, I don't know if you were just apostate or whatever, but it was the Jehovah's Witnesses, one of their members who had tried to leave their church, went all the way, I want to say all the way to the Supreme Court and won, to where the church had to have something on the books to allow you to resign. They had to be forced into it because of that legal precedence. So thank you, J-Dubs.
Yeah. Wow. So you're saying now they do count it?
They
still don't. Sorry.
No,
okay.
locally, yes, but
Okay.
it pulls you off the local church stuff. So that everyone looks at your stuff here. They don't see you.
But you're saying they don't take it off of the overall numbers when they announce the numbers.
But it's no different than gosh, some of the other, you know, I don't know if you want to put it that way, but I have some words in my head I'm not going to say, but churches that are very much into your business. Later, I was in the branch presidency in Pleasant Grove. For a little branch. It was just a small little student area, and the bishop, well, not bishop, sorry, the branch president, who was a great guy, phenomenal person. He asked me to become the membership clerk, so I went into, and basically everybody who was coming in, I had to call all of he asked me to call all of their previous bishops and first and second counselors to get the entire story of that person prior to coming in. One of them in particular was it don't know, it was a little too much for me because she had just gotten out of a divorce with her husband, supposedly, from what we had heard, he was abusive. And so I had to call the bishop and ask specifics as to why that happened and what he thought. And then he had told me, he says, well, I don't feel like she had worked through it enough and she should have stayed with him and all of this. And I went to the branch president and told him everything. And then he just looked at me and he says, it's a good thing he's not her bishop anymore.
Cool.
Because she's in a safe place now, and now she can live her life according to what she wants to. So that was obviously an eye opener. But some of these other bishops that were out there are taking some records and making sure that everybody passing on knows. So I don't know if most of it is written, I think. Just my own personal belief. Yeah. But some of it is definitely verbal. So
interesting.
And you move from one place to another.
A verbal trail of it.
I was pretty lucky to have some pretty good bishops, but then there could have been some that we had that it's just you're kind of at the mercy of who your bishop is at the time, you know.
Yeah. I don't know, Jessica, if you remember Keith Wilson. He was the superintendent of Alpine School District for the longest time.
Okay.
Probably one of my best bishops I ever had. And he was a guy, I used to swear a lot back when he and I used to hang out. And,
it's really all his fault. I'm seeing a pattern here. That every time Brennan was hanging out with Hayden, I'm just kidding.
No, I was probably the bad influence for Hayden, actually. But I had sat down with the bishop and I said, hey, I mean, obviously all of us at this age we're confessing our sins to our bishops because that's what Hinckley kind of pushed.
I said,
I swear a lot. And he just looked at me and he says, you know, Brandon, when a jackass steps on your foot, there are only so many words that can explain the pain that is radiating through your foot at that moment.
Yeah.
I said, so if you need to say a shit or something like that, go for it.
That's a good bishop right there.
Yeah.
He was a good guy. He was a farmer, so
Cool.
old
Yeah.
school.
One of my buddies is a bishop that I work with, and a young guy, like probably 32, 33 years old. And he said he had a couple come to him that they're like 2 weeks away from getting married, and they had messed up. They didn't have sex, but they, you know, someone touched something.
Anyway, keep going.
Should I call him and get the details real quick?
No, keep going.
They messed up, okay, morally. There was a moral issue. They brought it up to him. He's like, it's been a couple of weeks. We wanted to tell you. We felt bad about it. And he just like, he was really cool to him. He was just like, I would be more worried if you didn't have those struggles. I'm glad you have those feelings. You have 2 more weeks. Can you just make it 2 more weeks so we don't have to have any issues? He's like, and then he told me, he's like, I don't even know what to do if they do mess up. Like, do I talk to the stake president? Like, he's like, I probably should, but I'm like, you do exactly what you did, buddy. I think you made the right choice. You know, I'm like don't flip someone's life upside down. If they're there talking to you, they could have just lied and made their way in. And what, I'm like, they're there, man. They're trying clearly. Like,
yeah. I think letter of the
probably
law
make it 2
states that
weeks.
you would have to probably wait, but I think spirit of the law, if this guy's running off of that, is what we would hope. would
Yeah,
happen.
for all of us ourselves,
Yeah.
right? You know, but sorry, that's probably TMI story, but it was kind of, I'm like, good for you, man. Like, just, and I think there's a reason why it seems like they're calling younger bishops and younger people to callings, because I think this world's changing fast and
Well, yeah, it's definitely
everything. But
my own opinion.
So what do you think like is the light and like the heart of the situation that you're in, right?
Communication, everything.
Yeah.
If you can't communicate with your spouse, then what are you doing?
Yeah.
And it's not that we were perfect at it at first. We had to work through it.
Oh, we definitely weren't. Like,
And we still do today.
yeah. I mean, he always has the funny joke of like, we had our first 2 kids and then we had to figure out if we liked each other. So we have a 5-year span between our next 2. And so I guess we decided we liked each other. Anyways.
Just keep working.
And then we had our third, and she was
Yeah.
talking to a sock one day, and we realized, you know what, she needed a friend.
We needed a-
No, I'm just playing.
that's
She's
awesome.
funny. But yeah, I think
It took us a while. I
being
mean,
honest.
it was not an overnight thing at all. Like, we had our ups and downs with everything. I mean, knowing what we wanted, knowing what was important to
What was
us.
important was us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. But we also had to figure that out. Like, I think it was more of the fact of like, okay, so you take church out of it. What do we have? You know,
Yeah.
like, is there still something that we are passionate about? And obviously we did. There was a lot. And it just, we had to learn to like respect each other's boundaries of like what we talked about, what we didn't. I mean, we obviously talked about everything, but more as like, he could have just shoved it down my throat. Like, you need to leave this church because blah, 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 blah. Like, but he was respectful of that and saying, you need to find it out on your own and like knowing what you want, what's important to you, all that kind of stuff. And so, and then I was respectful to him because I was not going to make him do stuff that he didn't want to. Like, I could have made him do a lot of things that he didn't want to, but I didn't. I respected, like, this is not where you want to be. This is not what you want to do. And so I let him find himself as well.
Well, and you obviously were very strong in what you did. So when you took the kids to church, you were by yourself. And
Yeah.
yes, there was
And I had to choose that for myself.
there was some guilt on my side for not helping you with that. But again, also my integrity, and this is probably selfish of me, is that I can't be showing support towards something I don't support. I support my wife, I support my children, but they're choosing to go outside of that realm and they're going to church on their own. If she came to ask me and say, hey, you want to sit down with church with me or whatever to take care of the kids, sure, I probably would have done it. But I feel like she had the respect just as I did for her at the time. But also I was in a darker place than she was. So it was a very lonely moment in time for me in that I had a hard time understanding what to do next. Meaning that could I have gone to church with her and sat through the whole thing and lived the lie that I was feeling like I was living? Absolutely. But I would have done it for Amanda. And obviously she chose to not force me to go that direction because it wasn't something that was important to me. And I appreciate her for doing that because she was the trooper in being that person that could to take her 4 kids to church and have the husband that's just sitting at home or whatever, or going to a movie theater, or
Yeah.
I had to do something different with my life during that time because I felt guilty and I needed to work through my own personal issue of that. And later we did work through a few things like that. I think one of the consolations you did was for Father's Day. We've been doing this every year since. We go bowling. That's what we do. We don't do anything church related. It's all focused around not being in the church, and we go and bowl. So
It's been fun. The kids love it. They look forward to it every year.
all the time.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. Like, they love it.
We're horrible at bowling, but
Yeah.
Well, if you only go once a year, you know.
That's not the point.
And I think, like, I mean, that's become a tradition, right? Like, as years go by, that's what my kids will remember. And that's what's important, like, having that relationship, having that, it was never, we're trying to make them not feel like it was so much of a struggle. It's like, we're still happy. We still love each other. I mean, our kids probably get tired of it because we're always kissing in front of them and hugging each other and whatever. But
we do a thing.
That's good for them to see, I
at the
think.
dinner table that we talk about one negative for the day and two positives. That's what we do when we're sitting at the dinner table. And most of mine have to wrap around Amanda somewhere.
it's
You
funny
know,
the way he
like-
brings it over to me every time.
I don't know. So we're very cheesy with our kids like that, but I think showing that to them shows that our relationship is still strong, that we still love each other, and that we choose each other every day. Because that's the thing. You again, going back to being here now, as opposed to looking forward to tomorrow, you're more looking at what's in front of you, and you're trying to be that important person to whoever is in front of you. And I don't know how to explain it, but there was a documentary we watched years ago when it first came out. It was about the TV show Spartacus. I don't know if you've heard of Spartacus, but yeah, it's probably not the best one to watch if you're against certain things. But the documentary was about the guy who actually played the main part of Spartacus. He was diagnosed with cancer, and it was just this whole transition from having everything to going to nothing because his life was being turned upside down pretty quickly. I resonated with that quite a bit, and I was able to show Amanda kind of how I was feeling. Not that I had cancer or anything like that, but or even tried to equate to something like that. But just the idea of it made me feel better about the moment that I was in, and it's called Be Here Now. And so it was about being present in those who you love's life, and not worried about tomorrow. It's just doing everything you can while you have the moment now.
Yeah.
So that's what we try to do with our kids, and our relationship is wrapped around it. So we choose each other all the time. We obviously have friends out there, but we don't have a lot of friends because we do everything together. It's just,
that's awesome though.
I don't know.
It's harder too when you have 4 kids. I don't know, seasons of life, you know.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know really where I'm going with this, but I do have to say it was kind of a lonely time for both of us. You know, like his whole life was changing and he was trying to figure that out. And it was only for me taking my kids and people looking at me like, well, where's your husband? You know, whatever. Like, why are you staying with him? Like, people would ask me that, which I was like,
regularly,
wow, like you really
close family members that would ask her that stuff.
And not even close, just word member. Like, it was just crazy to me that they would just like, why are you staying with him?
Yeah.
Well, why not? Like, I love him more today than I ever have. Like, why wouldn't I? You know, it was kind of, in fact, when we first moved to our home we live now, there was somebody that came to the door, and I had talked to her maybe like a handful of times, and she like had found out that he wasn't a member of the church, right? And
we have a doorbell cam, so I'm listening to those things.
Oh, sweet.
Yes.
at that time I didn't know he was, but anyways,
Yeah.
she made the comment of like, well, how does that work? And I was just, I almost didn't know what to say. I was like,
You're like, what?
I literally just met you, first of all. You have no idea our story, what we've gone through. Like, nothing. And you're asking me, how does that work? And I just like, well, how does your marriage work? Like,
yeah, right.
Really? You know, and I didn't know what to say. And it was like, well, yeah, it's hard. Like, but is every marriage hard? And it's like, you choose to work through it. You choose to be offended. Like, you choose to care about something. It's your choice. Like, we chose to make this work.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't. And that's their choice. I have nothing against, you know, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like,
Right.
but that's the thing is we choose it every day, and it doesn't go unnoticed. Like, we have to work at it every day. And I
There's some
think,
more difficult days.
yeah,
even
for
today.
sure.
And I'll have to bring it up to her. She'll bring it up to me. Hey, we're struggling because of this.
Yeah.
She'll bring up a specific to me, or I'll do the same, and then we have to talk through it, work through it. It's hard at the time, but we
Yeah.
eventually get to the part where we're loving it.
But isn't every marriage? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, like,
yeah,
Totally.
100%.
so how does your marriage work? I mean,
Yeah.
I was so like, oh, it was very hurtful. Like,
Sure.
Yeah.
how dare you ask me that? I feel like,
And I
you
think
know.
if it was a few years prior, I would have taken offense to it, but
Yeah.
I didn't think anything of it at the time. I mean, it did hurt me that it hurt her,
Yeah.
Right.
but
Right.
overall, I was totally fine with it. Had no problem, because how someone else views me versus how I view myself doesn't matter.
yeah.
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 That's awesome.
And I've had to learn that. I mean, it's been hard because, I mean, I try not to make what people think of me matter so much.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're trying to teach our kids, right? Like, it shouldn't matter what they think of you. Like, if that's their choice, whatever, you know? But there's things that get under your skin. It's like,
Mhm.
gosh, am I really like that? Like, people really see me like that, you know?
Yeah.
And it's hard, but I don't know. Like I said, you have to choose to be either offended or you choose to just
Yeah.
keep going. I don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. She's felt that way too, like going to church here and there, where I'm kind of like in and out a little bit, and just admittedly, like it's getting harder for me to go even to like sacrament now. Like I went yesterday for about half of it, and like, man, and part of it I had to run an errand, and I didn't want to like. I wanted to get a few other things done too, but I'm just like it's and our kids are getting older too, so I deal with that guilt too of like it's hard because they feel guilty that you're there and don't want to be, and we feel guilty for not going because then they're there with the kids.
Yeah.
And it's just this, but then you don't feel good while you're there.
Yeah.
At least I
But
have.
I try and be like, I never ask
And we
you to
talked
go.
about
No, I don't either.
right.
It's his
Because
choice.
yeah,
Yeah.
because and I've learned to not put what you are thinking or feeling is not a reflection of me. So it's like one of those things where it's like, this isn't actually about me. But
Yeah.
where sometimes it does, you know, we're in this relationship, so some things
Where-
feel like they're connected, but again, I don't know. I think that's
The
where
hard
it's
part is just like
been
Amanda
good.
experienced with a neighbor that didn't probably mean to offend or whatever.
Which I would have to say, I don't think she is. It's just, as I've gotten to know her, that's just kind of
Yeah.
How she is.
She just, yeah.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
Totally. And I think that's what you're
And she's a good neighbor, by the way.
yeah, she is good.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. No, we
And-
love our neighbors.
And some people are like that, just kind of a matter of fact and upfront and ask questions, and you're like, hold on, dude, I don't like. Let's get to know each other first, you know?
Yeah.
People usually buy me a drink before they
Yeah.
trip off.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think but our decisions do affect each other, right? Like who I am affects how people might perceive you. And luckily, once they get to know you, they realize like, oh, Hayden's just super lucky or Brandon's super lucky. You know, like these guys got really lucky with who they married. But
I agree.
there is that like, you know what? Hopefully nobody treats you differently. Like Brandon said, like, I don't care what they think about me at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But it's more like, I don't want them to feel uncomfortable for me being their well, that's probably number two. Number one is like, they need to like, hopefully you feel comfortable and can just be yourself there and they can see you and your heart for who
Yeah.
you are, you know? And you've worked through that too.
Yeah.
We've talked about that, but
Yeah.
we
But this
were
isn't about us. This is about
for
them.
sure. Well, I'm just kind of like thinking about like, man, there's
No,
so
yeah.
many similarities like with our,
Well,
with
it's
our-
hard. I mean, myself, like when I was growing up, there was family because my dad was a smoker and didn't go
Yeah.
to church. So, like, it was very obvious, you know? And there were certain kids that I couldn't go and play with because my dad was that way. And it was very hurtful. Like, being young, it's like, well, why not? Like, why can't I? Is it Be Real? Do you guys have this?
It had to have been because my butt's buzzing too.
We got to get a picture of all of us before you go,
Okay.
by the way.
All
Don't
right,
always forget
let's-
we're bad at that.
let's
we
do
did
this
do
Be
something
Real
for 2
really
hours. We
quick.
promised 2 hours. That's so funny. I'm
Sorry.
the only one that doesn't have it.
Way to go, babe.
There's too many freaking apps these days.
This is what our kids are in our
Yeah.
family, so
Oh, that's funny.
I know this is me. My kids, like literally all my friends are my kids' friends, because they don't have phones or anything, right? And so anytime I post, they're like, "Bleh." And then whenever my kids are on it, it's getting blown up, and I'm like, okay. But now they changed it, so it's like if you don't post right
pictures.
away,
You have, yeah.
yeah, then you don't get 2 extra pictures. So that my kids are like, post it so that we can have more pictures, whatever. Anyway,
yeah.
Be realers.
It's the only social media we allow our kids to have. So,
is it?
Yeah, they're not on Facebook, Instagram, any of those things. So.
Yeah,
Is it the only one that Maddie has, or does she not even
she
have
doesn't
Be
have
Real
it. No,
on her
it's not
phone?
on her phone.
Yeah.
Do your kids have iPhones?
They have Android phones.
They're starting to
Androids.
ask,
Oh,
are
yeah.
we on a
Samsung.
podcast?
Yeah.
Your brother's asking, are you on a podcast?
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
That's funny.
Well, we promised you 2 hours, so we're just over that, I guess now. But do you guys have any other closing thoughts or anything that you want to add in there that maybe we didn't cover or
I don't know. It's been fun.
Yeah.
anything?
Yeah, it's been fun. Honestly, it's just, and I've said this before, but it's really what you choose in life that you want, and nobody has the right to tell you if it's right or wrong. It's what you choose. And I feel passionate about that. I mean, some people will probably have an argument with that because, certain religions, whatever, but I feel like it's ultimately who you are becoming and what you believe your best self is, what you choose to do with your life, and what's important that you push forward. And my importance is being with my husband, and I love him no matter what. Sorry, I'll get
Love
emotional.
it. No, that's awesome. That's
But
awesome.
I do.
Yeah.
He's my
Thank
best
you.
friend. So
That's awesome.
Amanda's my favorite person. So that's just the way it's always been and the way that I choose to make it happen every day. And I'm not perfect and I hope to never be perfect. I'm very much imperfect. And that should be celebrated on anybody's case. I, again, try to take every day as a different day, but maybe more towards pushing to make sure that our relationship is better. And whether that's me doing the dishes or
which he
me
does a lot, by the way.
Nice.
making dinner or just trying to take something off of her plate, because being a parent and being in a marriage is not easy. It's difficult. And if it was easy, why would you want to be a part of that? I think the easiness of life are the boring parts of life. I think the parts that are challenging, the ones that you have to work through, are the more meaningful ones that you actually get to take on through the rest of your life and actually look back and be like, damn, that was awesome. Those were the good days, and I didn't even know they were the good days.
Yeah.
So you try to take every day as if it is the good day. And that's just my mantra that I've always kind of run through. And as long as she and I can continue to have the same open-ended conversations that we do, yeah, we have a hard time and we work through some of these difficult conversations, but ultimately we get to know each other a little bit more and we grow together. Because now that, I mean, obviously I work just like Hayden does every day, and Amanda obviously has her own job, but at the same time, she's at home with the kids all the time. We kind of grow apart when that happens, and hopefully having the open conversation like we do brings us closer together and getting to know each other for these new parts of us that we didn't have before. And I think in any marriage, that's just the way things are. You could get totally wrapped around work or getting wrapped around a hobby or something and leave your spouse in the dark. But if you're not able to bring that relationship to where it is presently, then that relationship would fail. And in the case of a faith transition to where I don't have a faith anymore, and just hope for the best, really, I think having that open conversation like we did helped us. It definitely set us up for, I wouldn't necessarily say success, but it definitely set us up for the blueprints to success, because every day is a new day. Just because you were successful in your relationship yesterday doesn't mean today is good. You need to work towards that today. And it's always an ongoing thing. And I know it's kind of daunting to think about, but you're like, man, I put all this effort into yesterday. Now today I got to do the same thing, and tomorrow I got to do it too. And it's something that I yearn for. I love to serve her as much as I can. And in doing so, I grow more in love with her every day.
Awesome.
I love
That's
it.
awesome. Cute.
His
Yes.
answer was much better.
No, they're both
I'm
great.
rambling.
No, that's awesome. Makes total sense. It's kind of, that's what it takes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's really hard.
Yeah, and I like that, but it's like the opposite, right? Like
But
you worked really hard today, but maybe it wasn't great, even, but the good news, we got tomorrow to try
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
we have now, or
So-
yeah, I love that.
We hope to have tomorrow anyways.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
you kind of look at what happened recently in our neighborhood. We lost one of our neighbors to a car accident in the canyon.
He was on his way home for his son's birthday. He was coming home early for his birthday and got in the accident.
Yeah. So we were talking about that, and that tomorrow never comes. Let's just put it that way. Tomorrow never comes. Today is always here. So live today as if tomorrow never happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Anyway.
There you go, folks.
There it is.
Any closing thoughts?
Mic drop.
No doubt.
Brandon.
Yeah, I don't know about
Awesome.
I
that.
liked it. Thank you. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for
That was
having
It was
awesome.
really awesome. to
Wasn't
hear
bad
and
as I
talk to
thought,
you.
right?
no.
Too crazy once you get going. Kind of settle in and you
I
realize you.
stumble my words here and there, but
No, you're
No,
great.
I didn't.
This is
notice,
awesome.
So.
No, doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's authentic. That's what matters. So
for sure.
thanks for
That's
doing
right.
it.
Thanks,
Thanks.
guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep.